From Cobra Kai to Trojan Pride to Mandalorian, the chat still banking on that long shot to close. Now the Lakers are champs, the Rams, they feel the pressure as the Dodgers bring home silver and gold. Yes, it's been a year. Go on, LA, crack your beers. That's what we say.
Friday, January the 22nd, 2021. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. Hope everyone's having a nice week as we move in to the weekend, and it is a big one with the NFL Conference Championships. We're going to talk all about that with Erik here on That's What G Said. We've got a big day at Gulfstream Park. It is Pegasus World Cup Day. Huge card on Saturday at Gulfstream Park with, 7 stakes races to discuss. So Darin Zoccali joins me. We talk about races 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the stakes races for Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Andrew Champagne, our good buddy, he's going to talk a little Sam Houston Saturday with us. We jump into a late pick 5 at Sam Houston. Starts in race number 5, so we'll be talking Sam Houston Saturday races 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to close it out. This week in wrestling with Chad Cooper, we spend over 45 minutes talking about everything going on in the worlds of WWE, Smackdown, Raw, AEW, Dynamite, and NXT. So you get some NFL horse racing for Saturday from Gulfstream and from Sam Houston, and then everything going in the world of wrestling on this episode of That's What G Said podcast. A couple huge items to discuss before we jump into everything. This weekend, the Saturday big stable duel contest. It's the $20,000 Angels Envy contest. So contest begins Saturday. Players are able to begin picking their stables right now if you want. It's a $20,000 contest sponsored by Angels Envy. It's a $150 fee to get in. You're going to be picking a lineup based on the Gulfstream Park Saturday races. So if you're looking at those races, if you're playing the card and you want to get into this contest, that is a huge $20,000 pool with a perk. The winner will not only get the purse, but you get a prize package from Angels Envy, which includes a personalized bottle of Angels Envy bourbon, coveted Angels Envy merchandise, and an invitation for an exclusive virtual Angels Envy tasting event hosted by Whiskey Guardian. The winning player will be able to share the virtual experience with up to 9 of his or her closest friends. Really cool bonus for winning the tournament this weekend, the big Gulfstream. You also get this Angels Envy package. So check it out. On Saturday, you have contests at Gulfstream, you have contests at Santa Anita, Tampa Bay Downs, a free ride at Golden Gate, and then on Sunday you can play at Gulfstream, you can play at Tampa, at Golden Gate, or at Santa Anita. But the big focus for everyone this weekend is that Saturday Gulfstream Park $150 entry to get in the Angels Envy contest. Take a look, folks. I'll be playing this weekend over at Stable Duel. I'm going to get right on into what the big focus of the week is. That's NFL with eToff21 Sports. Erik joins us to talk a little NFL Conference Championship. Before we get into the discussion with Erik, we have to let you know about Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, one of the longtime sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, the website CINDYCARAVA.com. Now, she's a full-service realtor. That means she can help you in any different thing that you need in the world of real estate, many different ways, purchasing, selling, leasing. If you just need help finding a vendor, maybe you need help getting pre-approved for a home loan, she'll connect you with the lender. If maybe you're just looking for finding out how much your home is worth, free market analysis of your home's current value. CindyCarava.com. If you have any questions, she's the perfect person to talk to. She's just going to take all of the stress off of you when you have anything to do in that world of real estate. CindyCarava.com. Time for NFL with Erik. We recap what happened last weekend, and we get into the games for this weekend. And then there were 4. It is Final Four time in the NFL Conference Championship weekend, coming off of a divisional weekend that I still felt like the wild card weekend was probably a little bit better as far as the game quality that we got. Joining us, like always, he's been here with us almost every week of the NFL season. Erik, ETOF 21 Sports. Erik, we are coming off an interesting weekend. I think there are a couple teams that probably got to feel really, really disappointed about the way their season ended. A couple teams that lost, but maybe still feel okay about where they're going moving forward. But if you're the Saints and Drew Brees and you end like that, or you're Baltimore and your season ends again where you're kind of getting beat up, not a great taste in your mouth for either of those.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the Saints, where do they go from now? Are they going to have Winston, Hill? With their cap situation, they really can't trade for Watson or Stafford or Wentz. So they're kind of at a weird crossroads of their franchise. In terms of Baltimore, I wrote something about this earlier in the week. They just need someone that can move the chains. Everyone's seeing what Diggs is doing for Allen and the Bills.
Doesn't that feel like the perfect comparison? Yeah. Really, it does.
I mean, when you don't have that chain mover and you're relying on Willie Snead, Hollywood Brown, and Mark Andrews, I mean, can you really blame Lamar? You know what I mean? Like, that's the front office did everything they needed to do. They got Campbell to stop against the run. They traded for, who's the guy for the Vikings to improve the pass rush?
Yeah.
So they did everything they could for the defense, but still, like, I mean, if you're a defense, are you really worried about Snead, Andrews, and Brown?
No.
No.
If you got a number one wide receiver, someone just like Diggs, and everybody was slotted back one more, like if Brown is now all of a sudden like you're a really good stretch guy, and then you got Snead as just like a nice little possession, like your fourth pass catcher, and then you've got Andrews there to go across the middle a little bit, like then everybody seems like they would be slotted in where they should be. But with no number one receiver, it's like they're like one level above where they should, and it doesn't, like, they're missing something. And I don't want to blame it all on Lamar because he's still so young and he's so good with his legs and he's able to make such plays. I'm not going to say Lamar can never win a Super Bowl or they're never going to win, but something's got to change. You can't roll the same thing out there that you do again next year after the way you've lost now 3 years in a row. Like, you make the change and you lose with Lamar, and then you lose to the Chargers. And then last year, you're the best team in football, and you go in the playoffs, and you get the crap kicked out of you, really. And then this year, every time they had, like, a big game, they sort of lost it. So you got to do something different, right, Erik?
I mean, I think a player that would be perfect in that would be Allen Robinson. His contract came up with the Bears. Robinson there, I think, would be a home run hit. But also, Baltimore's at a weird time. Lamar's got 1 year left on his contract, and they have a lot of people's contracts coming up. I mean, my buddy who's from Baltimore, he brought this up to me. Would you trade Lamar and picks for Watson? Because I would in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of the Rams, I mean, they got to figure out what they're going to do with Goff. I mean, because all these reports are Goff.
They can't cut him because you get just crushed by the cap if you do. Are you better off just maybe trying to either bring in a veteran or maybe you draft someone late in the first round and you try to have them compete? Because, it's like cutting him, you get hit so bad that it's not really even worth cutting him, right?
And, I mean, I thought McVay was great, like everybody did, but that I really have to question a lot of that stuff that happened in that game at the end of the first half. Why are they hurrying up the score and giving Rodgers time to drive down for a field goal? They should have been trying to score with like 3 seconds or less. This is
something we'll talk about with Cleveland in a minute too.
And then when they're down by 7, he totally abandoned the run game. And Goff's thumb is throwing off. So there's a lot of questions I have with like the coaching of McVay in that game.
The Rams, it's funny the way their year was, right? Because coming into the year, they looked like they would be sort of like a mediocre team. Probably not terrible, but probably not great. Their cap situation was but then their defense overachieves and is one of the best defenses in the league. So then you sort of feel like you want a little bit more from them, but they probably ended up right about where they should have ended up. I don't know if they were better than Green Bay, but I think with a healthy Donald, with a healthy Cup, and maybe a little bit healthier Goff, the game could have been a bit tighter. Nonetheless, Green Bay moves on. They're going to play Tampa, and Tom Brady. We'll be talking about that in a second. And then over on the other side, the Bills get by. They get by the Ravens, but they didn't look great again. They didn't look like the Bills team we saw humming. And even the Chiefs, we'll talk about that game a little bit because we haven't talked much about it yet. The Chiefs were, one pylon fumble away from losing to the Browns. I know it's not as simple as that, but that ends up being the difference in the game when Cleveland was never, they never really felt completely out of the game, because even when they were down big, you could tell Mahomes was banged up. He was a little gimpy. And then when Henny comes into the game, it gave Cleveland a little extra life. This one's weird because as a Browns fan, you're probably going, okay, we had a good year, but you probably are still pissed off because that was a winnable game. Like, you had a shot to beat the Chiefs at home, like on the road, and make it to the conference final. You don't know. You assume you'll be back in this situation next year, but when you're there, you got to take advantage of it.
Exactly, because these windows can close fast. Everyone remembers San Francisco last year. Everyone thought they would be back. They didn't make the playoffs this year.
Yep.
In terms
That's
of
a perfect example.
Cleveland, like on both sides, like everyone's loving Andy Reid for that fourth down play. Well, they wouldn't have been in that situation if he didn't run a quarterback option with his quarterback that has turf toe. Like, why are you even calling that play to begin with? I live in Chicago. It is beat cold here right now. That's like me having a Lamborghini and parking it outside and just letting ice get on it.
Snow, sleet,
zero
everything.
Sense.
Yeah.
And they have a 10-year investment in that guy. So if he gets hurt, they're on the cap. Their cap tied to this guy for 10 years. So that whole thing, like, I don't understand why he did that. I mean, I get blasted all the time. Everyone loves Stefanski, but in-game stuff, he does some bad things. He burned a challenge, which hurt him with that timeout. He took a challenge. He didn't use a challenge when he should have challenged. I'm a big thing about winning the middle part of the game, not letting your opponent have the score and then the ball to start the half and you trying to have that situation. The Browns had that perfectly lined up. Why are they even running a pass play with 1:49 left in the Chiefs zone to give Patrick Mahomes 1:45 to score? You want to wilt that all the way down and create a situation where you're scoring with no time left or 10 seconds left. We don't give Mahomes any time. Then Stefanski says he's going to come out. They need to run the ball more. First 3 plays of the second half, incomplete pass, interception. Buckner misses the field goal. And then the second half of the season, the Browns did a way better job running out of the shotgun. They start the game running from under center. So just all this stuff, like, I question a lot of his in-game strategy stuff. I mean, Granted, he's motivated him. He's put him in a situation, but in-game, everyone's ready to mount this guy as like Sean Payton and Belichick level, but in-game, he makes a lot of mistakes.
Especially in this particular game. Like, and maybe he'll learn, hopefully, from this moving forward, because this is the biggest game he's ever been in, the most
not
pressure.
Going for 2.
The not going for 2 was brutal. The not
Yeah.
going, and I know it's early, but it doesn't make any sense not to, because you just know right then, okay, are we 2 touchdowns or touchdown field goal? That's all it comes down to. There's no reason that you don't do that. And I just, there were a couple things that you definitely scratch your head. Now, it's weird because it's such a funny thing with such mixed emotions, because all that being said, I think probably the Browns and the Rams even feel better about where they are and like having good, solid pieces and units to build around. Like the Browns, even Baker, he was pretty crappy throughout the early part of the year, and then they had that part of the year where there was a lot of weather, so he didn't really have to do anything at all. There was like a 3 or 4 week stretch. And then since then, he's sort of been better. I mean, he's done a lot of the things people wanted him to do. He's made big throws. This wasn't a Baker's fault that they lost, and the games that he's lost haven't really been Baker's fault. He seems like, I think he's at least a guy that you can say, okay, let's let's give him another couple years. Let's move forward. And I don't know if just 6-7 weeks ago I felt that way.
He's Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's not going to be that top-tier guy that's going to elevate people around him. But with a play-action game and pieces around him and a good offensive line, he can get you to the playoffs and win some playoff games.
And I think with it seems like they like him a little bit too, the team. You know, he seems like a guy that for a while he would say sort of the wrong thing. But this year I give him a lot of points for his leadership. He seems like the guys like him. He seems like he's pumped up when anyone scores and he's running around. Sort of what we were thinking when Baker came out of college, slapping guys on the butt, that kind of thing. Like he was a lot more that guy this year. Although it's easier to do that when you're winning, right?
Oh, for sure. You know, and I'll be the first to admit I can't stand Baker Mayfield, but
yeah,
I noticed anytime someone went to the ground in offense, he was always the first one there to help them out. When they scored a touchdown, they're celebrating. Last year, what he did that kind of showed me maybe he's maturing with a little bit of leadership. When Odell was taking a lot of the blame, Mayfield was directing it more on him, and that stood out a lot to me. But also, I really think Odell getting hurt helped Mayfield because at the beginning of the year, he was forcing the ball to Odell.
So much pressure on himself.
Yeah. When Odell went out, he started spreading the ball more. So I really think, like, my notes for the game, I mean, they definitely have to do something on defense. Besides Ward and Garrett, that defense is awful.
Secondary, especially the pass defense, is terrible.
Awful.
Terrible.
And then they run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Njoku made some big-ass plays, some big-ass catches.
He was great.
But I think they're going to move on from him because they drafted that kid, Bryant.
And they got
Hooper. Jones, I don't think Jones is ever going to be that 10-target-a-guy game, but he is a good field stretcher. Landry's great in the slot. They need like a playmaker because I honestly think that they're going to end up cutting Odell because they played better without him.
It is just interesting. You wonder now the next step for them could be if Stefanski could somehow find a way to unlock Odell and make that offense even better. Like you feel like a guy like that with his talent, you should be able to use him, but with his talent, the attitude, and what does that do to your locker room? They were a team that didn't have a lot of issues this year. I mean, we think about the Browns, we think about just embarrassing, immature, crappy stuff, right? Like we said, they had an adult in the locker room this year, and Odell wasn't there causing a lot of problems throughout, a lot of their winning. So him coming back, is that going to change the vibe, the feeling in the room? We'll see. Because they feel like they're on the upswing. They just punched the Steelers in the mouth. They're on the downswing, and we're looking at a Ravens team that continually can't win big games and has sort of become one-dimensional. They need changes. Cleveland's in a really good spot right now for the next few years moving forward with their running game, with some of the young talent that they have. They got Garrett. They got a quarterback that they feel comfortable with now. They got a good defensive front. So now's your time, Cleveland. You got it. Like your team, your execs have every opportunity to make you sort of a perennial playoff team for the next, however long. Like half the battle, Eric, we see in this league is getting a quarterback that's at least fine. And they might have that now.
But I mean, I really think the big thing that they did that took them over the line that elevated everyone was they got confident free agent. Then they drafted the offensive lineman.
It's so good.
I really think that is good. And also, I mean, my thing is, in terms of gambling, I always like to be one step ahead of people. So I already know if the Bengals, who are picking 5th, they have Jonah Williams. If they can get that Sewell kid from Oregon, if he drops down to 5, and you put those two as bookend tackles, and Joe Burrow, of course, this is him coming back healthy, I think the Bengals are going to be a lot better than next year and could be next year's Browns.
Let's talk about the games this weekend. 2 games, both on Sunday. First up, we've got the NFC Championship game. We've got Tampa Bay headed to Green Bay. I believe this one is around 3.5 or so right now. Green Bay, the total 51.5. I'm seeing some spots. Tampa now up to 13-5 and 10-8 against the spread. Green Bay up to 14-3 and 11-6 against the spread here. So, I mean, just as far as the 4 quarterbacks remaining, we've got Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, who was probably the 3rd best quarterback this year, only behind Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. So this is a damn good foursome. And I honestly think like any matchup that we get for the Super Bowl with these four teams is going to be really, really good. Hell, we could tell by both the betting lines, Erik. These games are 3.5 and 3.
Oh, I think these games are going to be great. In terms of the Tampa Green Bay game, these guys played earlier in the season, and I expect both these teams to come out very vanilla and kind of see how the defenses are adjusting to what happened in the first game. And if you look at scoring historically over the conference championship and Super Bowl, the first quarter, second quarter tend to be a lot lower scoring than the third and the fourth quarter, just because this isn't a week 12 game where if you lose, who cares? This is like, if you screw up, you're done. So you want to kind of feel out, see how the game's going. With that being said, I already locked in the under 25.5 for the first half. Arians has stated he likes to run the ball more. Bucks ran the ball a lot last week. LaFleur has a history of falling in love with the run early and sticking with it a little bit too much. Also, one of the books I use, Bookmaker, they offer a line where there's more points scored second half than first half. I like taking this because if there is a lower scoring first half, like if there's only 10 points scored, they only need 2 touchdowns to win the bet, as opposed to taking the second half over of 24 or 21, whatever it opens at. Plus, the weather in this game looks like it's going to be a little windy, some snow, so I think this game is going to be a little scoring. So I like that bet. In terms of sides, as soon as it opened, I locked in Tampa +4. Vera's coming back. He's going to help an already great defensive line for the Bucks. Bucks defense is number 1 DVOA versus the run. And what does Green Bay like to do? Green Bay likes to run the ball to set up the play action pass. But if they're struggling to run the ball, the play action is going to be null and void. So then Green Bay is going to try to go to the short passing game. What I said last week, how Tampa is 7 DVOA versus the run versus the short pass, they defend the short pass well. So they're not going to be able to use the short pass or the play action to set up those deep bombs. And then in terms of just having those guys, MVS, Adams, and Lazard run deep routes, Tampa was 3rd in the NFL in terms of creating pressure. So I really don't think Rodgers is going to have the time for those deep routes to set up. In terms of the offense, this is where it gets really interesting because Green Bay has 2, their outside DBs. You have Jair Alexander. Alexander traveled the first half of the season. Then after his injury, the second part of the season, he didn't travel as much. Last week against the Rams, he just played one side of the field. And McVay had a running back, Higbee, Van Jefferson, over on that side. He completely hid Robert Woods from that side of the field. I don't know if Green Bay is going to have Alexander play one side of the field just because Alexander does well against speedy wide receivers and King, the other DB, does well against tall wide receivers. So you're going to have King guard Evans and then Alexander guard Antonio Brown. But this brings me to the best matchup of the weekend. Chris Godwin in the slot against Chandon Sullivan, who's allowing a 67% catch rate and a 93 quarterback ranking to opposing quarterbacks. With that being said, I really expect that to be the matchup Brady targets. I found +5.5 receptions at +118, so I locked that bet in. Also, over 63.5 yards for Godwin. I really expect they're going to attack Godwin. Also, in games like this, when the teams are pretty well matched, you have to look at a lot of situations. So the big situations I look at are red zone. Bucks are top 5 in red zone offense. Packers are 28th in red zone defense. On the flip side of that, Packers are top 5 in red zone offense. Bucks are 16th. So if the Bucks are getting to the red zone and scoring 7 and the Packers are getting to the red zone and scoring 3, I mean, that's just math that the Bucks are going to be scoring more points. And then I look at third down. Bucks are 3rd DVOA and third down conversion. Green Bay is a disappointing 23rd. So if the Bucks are able to extend drives, that's going to be more, you know what I mean? They're going to get more opportunities to score. Tom Brady, he's used to the cold. Playing in front of crowds, I really don't think that's going to have effect on him. I mean, when I look at the defensive matchups, the Godwin matchup, and the advantage in situation football, if I can get the Bucks at +165 or higher, I'll lock in the money line. If not, I'm fine just sitting back with my Bucks +4.
Yeah, and at 3.5, that's still a fine number that for me, I got 3.5. I'm okay with that. I think Tampa's going to win this game straight up too. I mean, for a lot of the reason that you say, it's funny because like looking at Tampa, there were a couple teams that we knew, Tampa, the Ravens, and Seattle, that had very soft schedules to end the year. And we knew that we were going to have to really handicap those teams coming into the playoffs, because were they just beating up on bad teams, or was that beating up on bad teams helping get them right, helping have them figure something out, right? Sometimes you need to be able to play a team that's not as good as you to get some stuff figured out, and then it's able to flow better. That's what's happened with Tampa. We can look at the other two teams and say maybe Seattle, maybe Baltimore, they were able to beat up on teams and they were able to make it and look a little bit better because of the schedule. Tampa is just pretty good. And what's funny is all year long, they've been a team that the Football Outsiders DVOA loved. I mean, even when they were like losing a couple games early, every one of their losses was like a good loss even. So this was a team that's just fit like all of the advanced metrics and stuff. And you know what those advanced ratings and advanced analytics stuff don't care about? They don't care about if you're Tom Brady or not. They don't know who you are. They grade your throws. And one thing that we've seen, Tom Brady, who struggled for a little bit in the middle of the year when it seemed like there were a couple receiver injuries and he was having some issues. He wasn't on the same page with them all the time. He's actually been a lot better throwing the ball down the field in the last 6-8 games that we've seen from him. And it feels like when they went to the bye, Erik, it was almost like Arians and Brady sat down and said, okay, you got your way, I got my way. Let's just compromise here, right? Like, let's do a little bit of you, a little bit of me, what works best for us, and let's figure out. And I think that's sort of where they've been right now.
I mean, they've looked great after the bye. And like you said, he is throwing the ball deep. And the main thing that's done is, and they did it great in the Saints game, deep shot down the field. And it's not the fact it was incomplete or anything. That opens up the run more because now the defensive backs have to play it. Then the next play, you'd see Jones or Fournette break off a 5-6 yard run. So, I mean, just the play calling, the deep ball to open up the running lanes. I mean, they're clicking, and this defense is playing insane right now. The one worry I have with them, though, is they are awful at special teams. Awful. I mean, it was against the Saints. I tweeted out they should just start putting the ball out of bounds after those 2 returns by Harris.
Brutal. And yeah, I don't have issues with the cold. I don't have issues even with the road, any of that stuff. Brady's been here a million times before. And honestly, like, this is why you go get Brady, right? Like, this is like, you have a guy who's been here a bunch and he's able to lead a lot of your players who haven't been here a bunch and make them feel calm and make them, feel like they've got a big opportunity, because they do. I like Tampa in here. We're both on the Bucks, headed to Green Bay. We both think they can upset them. I'm with you. Money line in the plus 160 range is really solid. I don't have as much of an opinion on the total. It feels sort of accurate to me, but I do think Tampa's going to win this game, and I think it's going to be good. I don't think Tampa's going to blow them out. I think both of these games are going to be good, and we move to the Sunday night game, the AFC game. I'm expecting that the Bills are going to play a little different in this game, and maybe in a situation where they're on the road now. I thought they would play a little bit more loose last week. They didn't. They still won the game. A lot of that was because Baltimore was really bad. Buffalo's defense actually played pretty well, but I have not been impressed with Kansas City for most of this year. And a lot of people are going to look back at Kansas City when they played Buffalo earlier in the year, and I think Buffalo sort of got screwed because of the COVID cancellations, the way their schedule was. I think Buffalo has a big shot here. I'm gonna give both of the dogs, both of the road teams, the lean for me. Buffalo at Kansas City. This game is around 3 right now, Erik. KC is the favorite. Over-under is 54. Mahomes will play. I can't imagine he won't, but what version of Mahomes are we going to get? We saw him gimpy last week.
In terms of the game you referenced before, it's important to remember the Bills did not have their starting defensive line. And that was the game where they just ran Carl Edwards-Helaire like 50 times. And it was that rain Tuesday game. So you can't take anything for that game. In terms of this game, this is the hardest game it's been in a while for me to pick a side. Right now, it's 3. So in my eyes, you're really not getting any value in the number. I hate buying points, and I always advise never to buy points. So in terms of buying down to -2.5 or buying up to +3.5, I would never advise to do it. Every DVOA metric I look at, the Bills have a huge advantage of it. Chiefs are last in DVOA red zone defense. Bills are 9th. Chiefs are 19th in third down DVOA defense. Bills are 5th in DVOA third down offense. So everything I look at is telling me to bet the Bills. But the reason I haven't is I've watched those last 2 games that they played a couple times now, and I have just not been impressed from
at
what
all.
I've seen.
They're hard to
from the Bills.
Look past. It's hard to look beyond those games and think back to just a few weeks ago when they were rolling. And now, all that being said, they're winning, and we're talking about a Kansas City team that hasn't been blowing anybody out for a long time either. They've not been beating teams by double digits. They've not been beating teams up. They've been sort of messing around and playing with teams. It's an interesting situation. It's like, I think in a case like this where I don't love the way either team is playing, I'm usually going to take the points.
I mean, my whole thing with this is, in terms of the side, I'm just going to wait because I know that Friday is the big practice day. I'm going to see what Mahomes is doing. I'm going to try to find a beat writer from Kansas City that has an adequate report about exactly what he's doing in practice and kind of go from there. I mean, if Mahomes is playing and the reports are good that he's looking well in practice, this is going to juice up to 3.5, maybe 4. If that's the case, I'll take the Bills. If it just sits at 3, I'm probably going to be sitting it out. But I will say this, Arrowhead can get very windy. This is Josh Allen's first AFC championship game. First game on the road, playing in front of crowds. And Kansas City, like I said last week, is awful defending the run. I expect the Bills to come out and run the ball a lot more with Singletary. I also expect the same thing from the Chiefs to kind of protect Mahomes' concussion and his toe. I think this game is going to be a lot lower scoring also. I played the first half under in this game, under 26.5. I'm also, as soon as the prop comes up, do more points second half than first half. And like last week, how I was on all the Chubb props, this week I locked in Singletary over 63.5 total yards because Chiefs are 31st DVOA defending the pass to running back. So I really think that's a prop where you could take advantage of. But in terms of side, with so many unknowns about Mahomes, I just can't do anything. And another thing, like every week in the NFL, there's always like a quote unquote trendy dog pick that seems like everybody is on. And to me, it just kind of seems like everyone's on Buffalo. And that kind of has me worried even more. And I don't know. I just really haven't been impressed by either team. I can see both teams winning, but I mean, I'll be honest, I think Tampa Bay wins it all right now.
I like Tampa the most of everyone I'm seeing right now. I completely agree. If I had to pick one of the 4 teams, I would pick Tampa. And we have a really awesome Final Four here. And any combination that we get, we're going to have a blast talking about them here again on That's What G Said in a few weeks. Erik, I can't believe we're almost there, man, to the Super Bowl. It's been a journey. It's been a long season so far. It's been a lot of fun. You've helped us out, and we'll have the big game to talk about in a few weeks, and then we'll be talking a lot of NBA here and there. Let the folks know where we can follow you along online, and let the folks know about your podcast, social media stuff.
I'm at ETOF21 Sports on Twitter and Instagram. I have a website, ETOF21 Sports. A blog came out about what the Ravens should do. I'll be writing a blog tomorrow about how the Lions messed up another coaching hire. All my podcasts are going to be on ETOF21sports.com too.
Erik, great stuff, man. Thank you so much. We'll be going back and forth with you over the weekend. Good luck.
Thanks. You too, man.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with plenty more on That's What G Said. Horse racing fans, many of us have been using the DRF, the daily racing form, for years, studying the races, keeping up to date on news with all the articles. I remember looking for a copy at the local liquor store or picking one up at the local racetrack wherever I was going. Now it's even easier and cheaper than ever to use DRF with DRF.com and the newly optimized DRF Mobile. You can get all the tracks that you want to bet and handicap. Past performances that are mobile optimized for on-the-go handicapping on your phone. So you go to DRF.com from your mobile device, no additional cost. Tap the calendar icon on the top left. It opens all of the options for past performances and for the tools that are available. One click to bet now on DRF bets. Get real-time odds and scratches on race day. You can tap on any horse and you get those same DRF Past Performances that you're familiar with a larger font for your mobile display. One click to Formulator for charts, for replays if you get the Formulator version. And even on the classic Past Performances, you get the home screen with horses, with odds, with buyers. You get a lifetime buyer speed figure graph. You can rotate your phone for the best view. And any horse that you click on, you'll see the running lines. You can easily move from horse to horse. The same data as those traditional classic DRF Past Performances. You get an interactive format, which is very similar to the DRF Classic version that you're used to on the desktop. Every card includes live data updated instantly with those scratches, and so you get the accessibility from desktop to phone, cross-device functionality. You can take your notes and save them from one device to the next, and then access your account on any of your devices. On-the-go handicapping and wagering, multiple formats to view. You got the overview page with recent speed figures, current day's odds, easy access to expert selections and analysis. You got the buyer speed figure graph with lifetime buyer speed figures and chart notes for every horse. And you got those traditional DRF Past Performances that are just newly optimized for your mobile phones. They are constantly upgrading, improving, and making everything easier for you to get your handicapping done at drf.com. Big thank you to Erik. He's just done such a great job helping us out all throughout the year talking NFL. So next week, there won't be any NFL games to preview. We'll recap what happened in the conference championship games, and then the following week we'll have a very big Super Bowl show where we bring on a few different guests all to give their thoughts on the game, big props, and all sorts of stuff for the Super Bowl. So crazy to think that we are just now winding down the end of the NFL season. Feels like it just started, as it's always sad, right? Some mixed emotions at the end. It's exciting to get to the biggest, best games, but then it's a bummer because no NFL Sundays for quite some time. None of the after these next few, none of those 6, 15, 16 game days with everything going on. Those are some of my favorites. I think Saturday is going to be a big racing day. We have 2 different tracks we're going to be covering here, and our friends Darin Zoccali, Andrew Champagne join me each to talk about a different racetrack. First up, we're going to talk Gulfstream Park with Darin Zoccali. Get those past performances out, folks. We're looking at Gulfstream for Saturday, January the 23rd, and we're going to talk about all the stakes races on that big Pegasus card. So we go through races 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Thoughts on who to play, horses we like, horses we don't like, prices we're looking for, everything we think about the stakes races here on the Saturday card at Gulfstream Park. Enjoy the conversation with Darin Zoccali. It is a huge Saturday over at Gulfstream Park. It is Pegasus World Cup Day. We have the World Cup Turf Race also, and a massive undercard of stakes races, graded stakes races. To join me, one of the better handicappers that I know, someone who does a great job on a day like this in particular, weaving through, finding trips, finding some things to sink his teeth into. Good buddy Darin Zoccali. DZ, this is an awesome card at Gulfstream on Saturday. There are so many horses in the 5 to 12 to 1 range that just seem like logical race after race after race.
Yeah, it's a difficult card. It's a card where you have horses that are favored, that come with some questions at different points. There are horses at prices that you can make cases for. But top to bottom, I mean, some of these races are extremely difficult where you could see any of 5 or 6 horses winning. Especially the turf races are extremely competitive throughout the day. And the 2 Pegasus events as well are 2 of the more wide open that I've seen in the different runnings of this event. So it's a card where if you're right once or twice, you could certainly make a lot of money, but it's going to be a challenge.
We're going to talk about all the stakes races here. So we're going to go for race 4, and then we're going to jump and go to races 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 to close things out here with the Pegasus World Cup as race number 12. So in the 4th race, we've got the Fred W. Hooper. It's a mile. It's a grade 3 event here. And performer is no doubt the one to beat, DZ, from the rail. This is a graded stakes winner who had a 5-race win streak snapped. And I remember hearing afterwards that Shug was a little salty about it, even talking about the time of the year where the race was. He thought if it was earlier, they would have won the Cigar Mile and the weather wouldn't have been as bad, or if it was a different time. But nonetheless, you get Performer here who draws the rail. I don't see a ton of speed, though. You think they're going to try to just get aggressive with him inside, or maybe just sit behind a horse like Chivalry?
Well, if they want to get aggressive, he better break better than he did in the Cigar Mile, because no matter how aggressive they get, he's not making the lead against Chivalry if he doesn't break better than that. Yeah, look, the rail is a tricky spot here. I mean, in an 8-horse field going a 1-turn mile, you do have a long run down the backstretch, but you don't want to get yourself pinned down inside of runners. Getting dirt kicked in the horse's face. This is a horse that I think probably would do his best work, sitting outside of a horse, stalking the pace. And this is kind of a tough spot to be able to get that kind of a trip. On talent and ability, sure, he's the best horse in the race. But as we know, the best horse doesn't always win, and he's going to need a couple of things to break his way here to get the trip he wants.
Yeah, for me, and like in early pick fives or in early exotics, I'm throwing Chivalry in, who he's really quick when he wants to. He showed that he can sit off a little bit last time out. And 2 starts back at Gulfstream Park West, he was tracking from the inside. He was a couple lengths off in third, and he angled around. It was a pretty, it was not a bad effort. I'm willing to excuse the slop, and then he's just kind of progressing. He feels like the one that's going to get the lead. I don't know if he's going to be good enough to hold off Performer, if he can come rolling late, but I'm not really as high on. I'm not as high on, I guess, Fat Man in this spot, because I think he probably needs a little bit of pace in here. Is there, any other of the longer shots that you can make a case for? Maybe a horse like Avant Garde falling into a nice trip. I mean, for me, it was really Chivalry as sort of like the value horse that seems like he could get a really nice trip in here.
He could. Again, it depends on what Performer does. I mean, if he's breathing down his neck every step of the backstretch, then that's not going to be, the trip that's going to work out in his favor, I don't think. But if he does shake free, which is certainly possible, he could definitely take them a long way. You mentioned the horse at a price that I think is worth talking about, and that is Avant Garde. Look, he's coming out of a Claiming Crown race, and obviously this is a test for class for him. But, there's 2 things that he has going for him coming into this race. Number one, he's coming into this race off a buyer speed figure that makes him a win contender if he runs back to that race. Now, the Thoroughgraph sheets have not come out yet. That's one of my key handicapping tools, so I haven't seen how he stacks up yet on the Thoroughgraph sheets, and that's going to be a part of my handicapping. But he's coming off of a lifetime best performance, and he absolutely loves Gulfstream Park. 5 for 6 lifetime here, 1 for 5 everywhere else. So tells you all you need to know. This is the trip that he wants to go. Yeah, he's getting tested for class, but good horses at some point are going to get tested for class. He's won 5 of his last 6. All 5 of them come at Gulfstream Park. 15-1 in the morning line. I mean, I don't know if he's going to go off that high. If he's anywhere north of 10-1, I do think he's worth a win play. Because I think he's got a reasonable chance to make his presence felt here.
Yeah, he's a nice horse to flop into your pick 5 too, especially if you're playing against Performer and you're looking for a couple other horses in this race to use. He has to be on the ticket. He just feels like he's heading in the right direction. He's got some upside, and he doesn't have to be as far back as some of the others here. He's going to get the trip. It's just, is he good enough to hold off some others? But these are the type of horses you want to play. And yeah, anything in that 10-1 range feels good for him. That's race 4, the first stakes race on the Saturday card. We're going to flip now to race number 7. And we will hit basically the pick 6 sequence here at Gulfstream on Saturday. So we've got the grade 3 Marshua's River, ton of turf in the sequence now that we'll be talking about these last 6. Who do you start with in the 7th?
I love a horse here. I love Zoccali, and I just think she's coming out of a race. I know she's been off for a long time. She's coming out of a race where newspaper record Beau Ricole and Uni would all be 3-5 in this race. Yeah. She's just coming out of a race where she faced much, much better horses. Prior to that, her effort in the Mint Julep was very good. She was really good in the Sand Springs at Gulfstream prior to that, and they raced 3 starts
and
back.
She was buzzy that day, right? Because was at the point of the year when Gulfstream kept running during the pandemic, when they weren't supposed to be running. And that, remember, I think we talked about that card on this show when because that was like one of those cards that we were wondering, is this going to be like the last big racing card for a while? We didn't know what it was going to be like with tracks canceling all over. I remember, and she was very buzzy coming off her trouble trip at Fairgrounds. Yeah,
and you take a look. I mean, if you're worried about fitness, look at the workout pattern and look at the work on January the 12th. She went 57 seconds on the Palm Meadows turf course, and then followed that up with just a 3 furlong blowout literally 2 days ago. She is obviously basically kicking the stall door down that Brendan Walsh has to kind of keep putting her out on the racetrack. I mean, even getting her a blowout just a few days before the race. I just, and it's not a knock against the field, I just think this field is not overwhelming for a grade 3 race.
It's not.
Yeah, there are some nice fillies and mares in here, don't get me wrong. But there's questions. I mean, Vigilante's Way is facing older fillies and mares on a stakes level for the first time. Evil Lynn is okay. She's got a nice win at Churchill 2 back. Second last time against Listed Stakes Company. Nico's Dream comes out of a nice win in the My Charmer at 13-1, but did so after finishing third in the New York State Bred race. Tuned is probably a mare that's got upside for Graham Motion. She's never run a bad race. Maybe she hasn't knocked the door down like, maybe Graham thought she would, but she's been okay. But these are all horses that are running, mid-80 buyer speed figures. And Zoccali, I mean, her race 2 back, her win at the Fairgrounds, in December of 2019, I think I honestly think she's just the best horse in the race. And at 5-1 in the morning line, I'll take every bit of that.
Yeah, I can't play any ticket without her on my ticket. There are 3 horses that I'll look at to use in most of the exotics, and you mentioned 2 of them. You mentioned all 3 of them. Zoccali is one of them, but you mentioned the other 2. Evil Lynn, who's just honest and versatile. Like you said, there's just not much in this field, so I'll take a filly like this who has shown that she can win in some different ways, right? Just like look at her last 3 races. One of them, she was on the lead. Another, she was tracking a little bit. Another, she was like 5 or 6 lengths off of it. So I like an honest filly like this in a spot where it doesn't feel like there are any monsters. And then Tuned, I do think, just sort of like what you said, she's got a little bit of upside here. There are 2 different races today where there are horses that Irad is on, and it feels like he got outridden on those same horses last time. When I see Irad, who's a very, very good rider in that situation, or a lot of times really any good riders in that situation where it feels like they were on a horse, they didn't give them a great ride, or maybe they got beat to a spot, I generally think they're going to come back the next time and give that particular horse a really good ride. I think that might be the case with Tuned in here, who I just felt like he got a little bit outridden last time out when I think Tuned is, just like you said, in a race that's sort of weak. I feel like I don't have as many knocks on her as I do with others. So I'm down to 3 for most of my exotics with 3, 6, and 8.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, based on, scratches and whatnot, when it comes to, any multi-race exotics, I know this race doesn't start a pick 5, but it's tied into a pick 4 that starts in race number 4. Mm-hmm. I might take a bit of a stand here with Zoccali, depending on how I tap out the rest of it. And again, I have to look at the Thorograph sheets as well. I mean, that's, like I said, they're not out yet, and that's going to be a big part of my handicapping. But, her race in the Just a Game, she looked like she got a bit washed out going into the gate. She had a lot of lather on her shoulder. She was kind of wide on the turn. And, when Newspaper Record and the top 2 just kicked away, I mean, she just had her heart broken and just had no chance against that type of a field. So she should appreciate this field. I honestly think this race is more of a listed stake than a grade 3, and I really think she's going to appreciate that, and she's going to be probably one of my stronger plays of the day.
It's funny because it's a good card in that, like, every race, there's not going to be a whole lot of overwhelming favorites, but as far as like the depth of some of these graded stakes races, they don't feel like the true grade 1s or the true grade 2s, but the bet, it doesn't matter, right? 5-1 is 5-1. From like a betting standpoint, it's okay. It's just not necessarily a bunch of stars all throughout the card like we might be used to on a big date like today, like a Pegasus Saturday. We got a race coming up, DZ, in the 8th, 1.5 miles on the turf course for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. There are 9 horses on the morning line between 3-1 and 12-1. It's just another one where it's like, oh, wow. So nobody's an overwhelming favorite, and nobody's completely dismissed in here. Where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously the conversation has to start with Always Shopping off her last effort. She was ultra impressive there in that last stake win. She really hasn't run a bad race in any of her last three. The Dowager was a really solid second behind Blame Debbie there. She's certainly been a different horse on turf than she is on dirt. I think Pletcher, figured out finally with this mare what she wants to do. She is a deserving morning line favorite. But that being said, she is certainly far from a lock, stock cinch. And just because she's the morning line favorite doesn't necessarily make her my top selection. But I do think any conversation in the race has to start with her, given the fact that she's in very good form and proven to be a horse that can go a mile and a half.
I agree. I completely agree. She's the one to beat. She's consistent. She should save all the ground. I have no knocks on her in any sort of late exotics. She's in my top tier, which I think I feel like I might have down to about 3 right now in the top tier of horses that I'll be using everywhere. I'll probably throw Heavenly Curlin in. I'm completely okay with dismissing her turf debut. And I feel like she's just another one who's really on the upside, and she's got a lot of ability. And she'll be sort of in that middle-ish price range. She's not going to be like an overwhelming short price or anything. So I'll throw her in with the 1. The horse who I think the most intrigued by at around 10-1 or so is Lovely Lucky, the number 5. So if you're just looking at her last few races now, this is another one who people may look at and go, oh, she had to drop in for maiden 75 to break her maiden and win against claimers. You know what? That kind of stuff doesn't bother me as much nowadays. The divisions are just different. We talked about it even earlier with the horse that was looked like it had a legitimate shot to hit the board in the 4th race coming out of some claiming crown races and stuff. It's just, you get a horse good, you get him going the right way. I think Lovely Lucky got really, really good last year in a few different races. The one that jumped off the page to me was the Glens Falls, where she sat nicely second and she loomed up. She briefly took the lead. She just missed 3rd. She's still lightly raced overall, and she's got a little bit of upside. I think Civil Union, I'm pretty high on Civil Union, who was 5th in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf and wasn't beaten a whole heck of a lot that day. So, I look at her numbers and figures. They stack up pretty well with the rest of this group. Lovely Lucky isn't a horse who is going to be on the lead, but I think she could be right off of it. I'm thinking maybe sitting second behind Traipsing, and that could be a nice trip in here. So give me a Lovely Lucky to use as one of my top tier horses. I'll play the 5 if I can get anything around 8-1, and I'll be using like 5-7-1, I think, in most of my exotics.
Yeah, Lovely Lucky is a use for me. I don't know if we're getting that 10-1 dropping out of the Flower Bowl. She's coming out of a grade 1 against a lot of horses in here that are not grade 1 types. She didn't run bad that day, setting the pace.
Yeah, those are just better horses than her, honestly.
Oh, no, they are.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think she wants to be on the lead either.
No.
Which I don't think she will here with Traipsing in the race. So she could work out a really nice trip right in behind the speed. You had mentioned Heavenly Curlin. She is a total wild card for me. We saw a horse, and forgive me, the name escapes me, but there was a horse last week or a week and a half ago that came down from Gulfstream Park off of a race, a couple of stakes at Woodbine, who absolutely exploded in the turf race and looks like could be, a serious good thing. And the name of the horse escapes me right now. So, people might have that fresh in their mind, and she might take a lot of play here. Now, a couple of things. 2 starts back, she beat a horse named Crystal Glacier. Crystal Glacier actually is over at Turfway. Came back to just kind of run okay, an okay 5th and a non-winners of 1 other than allowance, going either a mile and a 16th on the poly there. Now, the 2 races that she's coming out of, the horses that have been behind her have really not come back to do much of anything. So that's a little bit concerning. She has progressed a ton throughout her career, and Mark Casse certainly has her firing on all cylinders. Going to a mile and a half, going back to turf, shipping from Woodbine to Gulfstream, and the fact that she's beating horses that are not necessarily doing a lot in their next start. There's some things there that do concern me.
You don't want to take a short price.
That's kind of where I'm heading.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to give you a wild horse in here that I don't necessarily know if she could win the race, but I'm kind of inclined to take a look at her in exotics. And the horse is Campbell's number 6. And, people may think I'm crazy because our last 2 races look like what they look like. However, you take a look back at the race at Kentucky Downs. She finished second, beaten 2.5 lengths, going a mile and 5/16. She was actually put up via disqualification. She ran second behind a horse named Blame Debbie. Well, Always Shopping, your race favorite, ran second to Blame Debbie in the Dowager.
Yeah.
So, okay, she's second behind the horse that beat your morning line favorite 2 back. Then you take a look at the next race at Keeneland, going 1.5 miles, where she really kicked home well to get beat just a neck and a tough non-winners of 2 other than. And she finished in front of Delta's Kingdom, who came back to run third in the Long Island and is one of the main contenders in this race at 8-1 on the morning line.
Yeah.
Next race in the Zagor, toss it out. Yielding turf course, obviously hated it. Pretend like that race doesn't exist. Then I can't make an excuse for her in the race behind Always Shopping last time, other than the fact that maybe she actually just is a marathoner and wants every bit of 1.5 miles, 1.5 miles. Maybe 1 mile and 3:16. She's just not hitting her best stride. Maybe they quicken a bit too early for her. And perhaps as they go longer, she's going to get better. Again, look, I'm not saying she can win this race, but she's going to be like something like 25 to 1.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And she probably shouldn't be. And I'm going to include her in some gimmicks. I'm obviously going to use Always Shopping on top. I'm going to use Delta Kingdom, a bit in there as well. I mean, there's a lot of horses in here that I'm going to be including. I'm using Lovely Lucky as well, on my tickets. So, but I'm going to try to build some exotics and try to get this Campbelliza.
That'd be it,
on the ticket underneath at a price to try to, spice things up a bit.
Really good case to be made there. Great job building your reasoning for Campbelliza, the number 6 in race number 8. Make sure to throw her into some of the underneaths in there. If you're playing a late pick 5 or you want to throw some prices in, she'd be a nice horse to flop in because that would be a great way to start with some big races still to come. As we get to the 9th race, the inside information here. This is another one of those races I was talking about. Irad didn't have the greatest of rides last time out with Cinnabunny, who had been a filly coming in from Parks, who had shown a lot of speed previously, and she ended up last in the field. And the horse Ladies Island was up on the front end, who had cleared early on, and Cinnabunny started to roll. But then she was moving inside, and she sort of ran up right into traffic. So not only was she not close enough or on the lead early, then when she starts moving, she moves in between horses into traffic. She probably wasn't going to win, but it would have been really, really tight if things didn't get so congested for her late. I thought it was a bad ride from probably the best rider out there right now. So I'm expecting him to put her on the front end in here. She's probably the fastest, right?
Here's the thing, and I never know what to make of it. On paper, she looks like the fastest, but sometimes that Parks form from speed just doesn't transfer.
I know.
It's weird.
It's
really, really weird. Parks is a very, very strange track. Sometimes it goes, sometimes it doesn't. Was last time an indication of that? Horses elsewhere just faster early? I don't know. But in this field, based on the early time form, pace settings, pace figures, based on the splits, she's supposed to be on the lead.
Because Pacific Gale isn't. She's more of a presser.
Yep.
She's not and she's probably her other most naturally quick rival in here, and she just isn't one that wants to go. She's better off just sitting right off and sort of pressing you. So if that's the case, and she gets the lead in here, she's probably going to be pretty tough. To me, there are a couple other horses that sort of look similar. Like I look at Bronx Beauty and Sound Machine. They kind of look the same to me on paper. I think you can make some cases for and against either of them. And you have the group that all came out of that Sugar Swirl last time out. So I guess, when you're talking about this race, it's sort of, do you like the group that came out of there? Are you going to play them or are you going to go against them?
Yeah. And I might be fading a little bit because I think the Rampart was a better race. And I think Dream Marie has a real shot to bounce back here. Latruska just ran her eyeballs out in the Rampart last time out. I think the buyer speed figure for the race came back at 98. And prior to that, Latruska ran in the Beldame. She ran in the Ballerina. She's just a better horse than these. And Dream Marie ran admirably there to be second. The cutback to 7 furlongs, I actually think might help her a little bit. She does draw down inside, and she's not the fastest off the gate. So, Reyes is going to have to work out a bit of a trip here. And the other horse that I need to, talk about is just a mare that's just constantly faced better than these, and that's Sally's Curlin.
Yeah.
look, I know the form recently is not good. And she does come out of the Rampart as well, where she did not run well at all. But
that race shape is just not for her.
It's not for her, exactly. No. A mile, a one-turn mile at Gulfstream going 23-4 to the opening quarter is just not going to work for her. I think this race will be faster early.
Yep.
She had no shot in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint, of course. And again, she's just coming out of better races, running against better horses than these. Eventually, you have to imagine the light switch is going to go back on.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she gets the setup in this spot. So, she was 5-2 in the Rampart. She could be 5-6-1 here. And I think the value is going to dictate between Dream Marie and Sally's Curlin which way I go. I kind of think I prefer Dream Marie right now, but, value will dictate where I land.
Yeah, because to me, with Bronx, there's a couple horses that I'm not quite sure if 7 furlongs is what they want. Even Cinnabunny, even Bronx Bunny, even Pacific Gale, even towards the outside with Sound Machine. So now we're talking about half the field who we're not sure if 7 furlongs is their trip. That's really the perfect trip for Sally's Curlin. She needs a little pace, but she feels like if she's around that morning line price, that feels like what her chances are to win this type of a race with the type of trip she would need. She's definitely good enough. She just is a little trip compromised. And I would not be shocked to see her starting to wind up late, because I like Cinnabunny in that I look at this field and I think he's got to just get aggressive with her and have a couple lengths on the group. But if she's stopping late, it is not going to surprise me at all, and Sally's Curlin could be the one to come and get her. You mentioned the positives and negatives about Dream Marie. I would love Dream Marie if she was drawn towards the outside. With the rail draw, I'll use her just a little less. I'm a little more concerned about the trip she may have to work out from down in there, but she's not going to be a short price, so she'll be in that 5-1 range-ish or so. This is, I thought an interesting race. Depending on where you stack up the races, do you stack up the Rampart a little bit better? Do you stack up the Sugar Swirl a little bit better? This kicks off the late pick 4. And, on paper, it looks like Cinnabunny should have a few lengths, but as DZ mentioned, you just don't know. And she showed, it wasn't even like she had a bad start last time. It wasn't like she missed the break or she got bumped. She just wasn't fast. That was the difference.
Yeah, and it could be a product of a number of different things. You wouldn't think the surface would necessarily destroy her, but if it,
and she ran fine over the surface. She just didn't show the speed, right, which is weird. That's the
ground break away from her leaving the gate. So look at it. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe after the ship, maybe she wasn't as sharp. She was in Kentucky up until the beginning of December. That's possible, I suppose, but. If she bounces back and shows speed, she's going to be awfully tough to beat. By the way, we didn't mention, This My Time, who is suddenly, the last 2 starts has been, a completely different race for her. A freaked in the slop. And then I remember I played against her in the next start because I always play against freaks in the slop. And just, she was drifting a bit in the stretch, but she ran back to another good race, and she's going to get a test here. My gut tells me to let her beat me right now in a grade 2 like this and show me that she can be up to this caliber. But, she's another one that, is razor sharp right now.
Yeah. And I think coming out of the horses of the Sugar Swirl, I do give Cinnabunny another shot to bounce back since it was just her first start at Gulfstream. And I'm thinking she might have the rest of the field in that group. I don't love. I don't need a Bronx Beauty that much. I don't need, to the outside Sound Machine as much. I would prefer This Is My Time and Sally's Curlin, Dream Marie, the other ones that you mentioned. So, of that, I prefer This Is My Time as sort of a new face than some of the others who have, been around. I just, again, This Is My Time. Is she going to be 3.5 to 1? If that's the case off of those big figures, that might be a little bit short for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's a race that, I guess you have to decide, like you said earlier, which race you think is the key race to come out of, and identify the value within. This Is My Time at 3 to 1. Like you said, I think that's going to be too short. If Cinnabunny gets pounded, I'll take that into consideration as well. It's a challenging race from a pace standpoint. It's a challenging race from a class standpoint. The 7 furlong distance is always tricky because some horses love it, some horses don't. And I really think a big part of this race could be, the Sally's Curlin Wake Up, because on her best, I do think that she's the best horse in the race. She's just been so off form.
Completely agree.
And that could be a key to the race. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to the 10th race. We've got another 1.5 mile turfer. How about that, right? We've got so many distance turf races on this card, which we very rarely see. So lots of trip handicapping, lots of long distance on the turf. I think that Doswell is coming into this race in just in really great form. Most recently he was behind Largent, but he's a step slow. He's behind horses on the inside. He's fifth. He's about 5 lengths off, and he's just kind of buried behind horses. He has nothing to do but sit, and he starts working out a great trip, and he just didn't go. Like, he's in the spot that you want. He's getting the jump on all the deep closers. So now just go and move early, get the jump. Instead, he kind of waits, and a couple of the horses to the outside loom up, and he gets buried inside. Then he's got to wait a little bit again. I didn't really love the trip. I thought if he just moved early, but I do love the versatility he has. He should save all the ground from the rail. The horse who beat him, Largent, is going to be a top contender. I mean, he's coming out of a race with Largent and Breaking the Rules, who we're going to see in the next race against a better group as contenders. And you look at Sadler's Joy. He's no doubt the class of this field. He's faced better for a long time.
I let him beat me every
time. I don't think I can't remember ever playing him, honestly, nope. Ever. And I'll do it again in here. It just with his running style, he'll kind of make a nice run. He gets stuck in some trouble. He'll come running and he'll pick up some pieces. I much prefer Doswell. This was probably a race where I even single in on Doswell on one ticket and then play another where I go a little bit deeper. How do you see the 10th?
Yeah, I mean, the question for Doswell probably is just 1.5 miles. He's never been more than 1.25 miles. Being by Giants Causeway, I mean, you're not necessarily concerned about the distance, but, that would be a legitimate question. He's going from 1 mile
absolutely.
To 1.5 miles. Overcame a lot of adversity, and that Fort Lauderdale was a fast race early.
Yeah.
46 and change, 109 and change going a mile.
Holiday, Factor This, Some Like It Hot Brown are all 3 really quick horses who were all in there. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. He's working really well. He enters this off a bullet workout, draws inside. But my question is, does he end up on the lead, or does Tide of the Sea end up on the lead? Now, Tide of the Sea is interesting to me. Second race back off the layoff of Mike Maker. I don't know what happened to him early in that race. He was just, I don't know if he wasn't ready to go in the Fort Lauderdale or what happened, but he probably should have been a part of that pace too. And he never got out of the gate. Czech got in all kinds of trouble and actually ran on okay. Now, he might have just run on okay because they went so fast early. I don't know. But he's got a couple of decent efforts, prior to that. He beat a next out winner at Keeneland. He's won at 1.5 miles.
And that next out winner came back and won 2 races in a row at Fairgrounds recently. Stakes races, Logical Myth. Yeah.
So, that's kind of key in there as well. I like Doswell a lot. I think he is absolutely the horse to beat. But when I play this race in terms of vertical exotics, I'm going to be I could see it already how it's going to map out on paper for me. My tickets are basically going to be 1-7 with all, 1-7 with all, with 1-7, stuff like that, where I hope that both of them come out of that race and can hit the ticket. Now, one of the horses that I think we need to talk about, because he's a huge question mark, and I don't know what to make of him shipping down, is Sir Sahib. Finishing second, to say the word, in the Grade 1 Northern Dancer probably wasn't the depth of the Grade 1 that the Northern Dancer normally is because of the lack of travel to Canada this year. So that might be a little bit of a phony race. But again, this is a horse that really seldom fires a bad race. He seems to be in the best form of his life.
Yep.
Gets Saez. He's a horse that if he ships down and handles it, could be one that hits the ticket here in a race that I think might be a little bit top heavy. And I might prefer him to some of the other closers in the field to get a piece of this.
Yeah, if that's a fair price for him. That feels like what he should be, like 6-1-ish. That makes a lot of sense because he has a question mark or two, and you mentioned the strength of some of those races, but this isn't the strongest race in the world, right? We're not talking about this as like necessarily like a deep like it's competitive, but we're not talking about a bunch of horses with Grade 1 credentials here. So he's very intriguing to me. He doesn't win a whole ton. He's absolutely a horse you want to have in your Exactas Tri Supers, and I want to have him on at least like one or two of my late pick 4 or pick 5 tickets because, yeah, like I said, Say the Word maybe isn't a legitimate grade 1 horse, but Say the Word is actually a legitimate contender in the race we're going to talk about next. And I think it just shows you that this whole card, while very contentious, it's all sort of like everything's up about a half, like a half of a notch. Like the grade 1 is really more like a half of a grade 1. The grade, like everybody's up like a slot, like more than they should be. And that's fine. If that makes for competitive races, I'm okay with that. So we just got to sort of adjust what we look at and go, oh, okay, grade 1. Well, maybe it wasn't a grade 1, but heck, still against this field, that's fine. To me, the horse I thought, I just want to mention at least, and I'm definitely going to flop him in on one ticket here or there. Look at Sir Anthony. Look at what this horse has done in his last 3 starts. He went 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt at Churchill. Then he went 6 furlongs on the dirt at Hawthorne. And then he went 2 miles on the turf and he won. He went from 6 furlongs to 2 miles on the turf. He's just a pretty cool horse overall. And when you start, he's a multiple graded stakes winner on the dirt. When you start digging back into some of his races that are off the front page of the Past Performances, you actually see that he's hooked up with some pretty quality horses on the dirt throughout his career. He's run into some nice ones, some nice actually like grade 2, grade 3 type horses. I don't know if he's as good on the turf. That was the best race he's ever run on the turf last time out, going 2 miles. But I know he doesn't have a problem getting distance. And I know he's sort of got some quality to him. He's a horse that I'm going to throw into at least some of my tries and supers, and I'm going to toss into a pick 4 or 2 because I couldn't believe it when I was looking at it. Which is the last few races, 6 furlongs to 2 miles on the turf. So you got a little speed prep for that one, DZ.
Yeah, it's kind of like Precisionist in the old days, or
yeah.
Maybe that 6 furlong race at Hawthorne was just a workout for him.
Right? I know they didn't. It's like, you know what? We just figured it would be a little better, and maybe we could pick up a paycheck, and we did. So,
look, hats off to him. The horses run on dirt, synthetic turf. He's gone short. He's gone long.
One on the wet track.
$1 he's a Ridgeling too. He's just a cool horse, cool horse, and yeah. No, I mean that last. I don't necessarily think that the 2 mile Alan Jerkins was anything better than an allowance race, but still, cool horse. Leparoux, comes back on board. Who knows?
yeah. I'm throwing him in on a ticket or 2. Now let's get to the big 2 races here. We've got the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. So the 11th and the 12th both. They are like, I don't know how many legitimate grade 1 horses are really in either of these 2 races, but I'll tell you, it's a damn good betting race. This 11th, especially. Where do you start in this wide open turf race?
Where do you start? I'll start. I'll tell you what I'll talk about with starting is a horse that I'm against. I'm against the morning line favorite, Colonel Liam.
Me too, 100%.
And I'm against the horse. And listen, he ran against Domestic Spending and Gufo in the Saratoga Derby Invitational. Those are 2 really good horses, and he finished right there with them. And he came back and he won the Tropical Park Derby very, very easily. He's never faced older horses in a stakes race. And he just turned 4. I look, worth purchase for $1.2 million was always meant to be a good thing. I get it, and it's Pletcher and it's Irad Ortiz, but to me, in a spot like this is the kind of horse that I typically would play against. And I really think that he is up against it from a class standpoint as he's tackling older stakes horses for the first time. And if he wins, he's gonna knock me out of probably everything.
Me too. I don't have him anywhere. I completely agree with you. It's just that I got to see more from him. I wasn't all. I mean, he's fine. I just wasn't like all that impressed with him last year. He was good in his comeback race. This is just this isn't a group of grade 1 horses, but there are a lot more fun horses to take a shot at that are going to be better prices that I feel like you even have more upside with. I mean, I'm looking at a horse like Another Twist of Fate, who might be able to get the lead in here. I mean, generally, I'm not liking horses with the Southern California turf form when they come out to the Midwest or to the East Coast and face better turf groups. But, Rosario jumps aboard. This is a horse who he has had some class. He's always showed ability, and then he was off for a long time. He was off from May to September. He came back, and he actually won the Long Acres Mile off of a long layoff. And then he goes into the Peter Miller barn, and both of his races for Miller are actually pretty good. He just sat a perfect trip. He was like jumping out of his skin in the race last time out. Very, very easy win. I think he's just going to be in a perfect spot because there's not that much speed in here, right?
It doesn't look like it on paper.
Storm the court maybe, and but nobody that's like I have to be up front.
No, the pace scenario is perplexing. I think Largent's going to show more speed. I think Largent is a weird horse here because that last race in the Fort Lauderdale looks really good, but it was a crazy fast pace in that race.
He got such a great trip.
He got an absolutely perfect trip.
It was a great ride by Paco. Let's give it, right? Because on paper, he probably looked he was probably higher than he should have been in that race because people were looking at it going, okay, there's like 3 other speed horses in this race. There's just no way he's going to be able to get the kind of trip he needs to win. But he did, so hats off to Paco.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is, if you take him here, you're going to take him at 4-1, where he was almost 17-1, last time. So that is a bit, a bit of a concern. There are a couple of horses in here that I think are interesting. And one of them is a big long shot that I'll talk about a second. A couple of horses to the outside. So Say the Word was third behind Arco in the Hollywood Turf Cup. He won the Northern Dancer. We talked about that race before. And then before that, he ran in the Singspiel. So I guess with this horse, see how Sir Sahib does in the previous race, the McKnight, to try to get a gauge in terms of at least vertical exotics for what this horse might do.
You feel like Arklow would be favored in here.
You feel like Arklow would be favored in here. Yeah, there's no question. And the horse is proven to like a mile and a half. He's 2 for 3 with a third place effort in that going that trip. And his 2 best buyer speed figures also come at the mile and a half distance. A real wild card for me is the other pleasure, and that's Social Paranoia.
Yeah, I agree.
I have always thought that Social Paranoia had all the makings to be a really, really good horse. His maiden breaking win at Gulfstream Park was like one of those holy crap wins. Like, what is this thing going to turn out to be? And they went straight into stakes company with him. Ran well, was really good in the Belmont Derby, ran well in the Saratoga Derby Invitational, was really good against just 3-year-olds, came back when he won the Appleton to start his career last year. I remember saying to myself, okay, here we go. Here's the march to the Breeders' Cup turf with this horse. And then it just never kind of panned out. And I don't really know why. But came back July 4th in the poker, big win, went to the bench. Came back off of a 5.5 month layoff and ran a bang-up race at only 7.5 furlongs, where I think he got a lot out of that race. Swinging wide, top of the stretch, flew home. I think the screws are completely tightened. And Social Paranoia has a really, really big shot here at a price if he can overcome the outside post. Now, before I get to the next horse, I'll let you chime in because I think Social Paranoia is...
I agree. Yeah. He loves Gulfstream Park. I have my top tier is 8, 11, 12 for me. Okay. With Social Paranoia, with the Say the Word, and then with Another Twist of Fate, and then a wild card horse for me that I will throw into at least a pick 4 or a pick 5. Definitely don't know if he's good enough, but he feels like a new face on the upswing. Is North Dakota for Shug, who has the ability to get horses like this right. Just look at what he's done since coming back into the Shug barn since early 2020. Some pretty good stuff. A couple good wins down at Tampa, even a nice win over at Colonial, and then last time out the Grade 3 win where he was like 15 lengths off. At one point, it was one of those weird races where you get a horse who runs off early on, and he ended up getting beat to a spot, and he still wins the race where he was sort of green there. I think there's some upside with him, so he's a horse who I'll throw in at least onto one ticket or two.
He's an interesting horse. I remember that race at Tampa because, he was an odds-on favorite there. And sometimes Shug shows up with those horses at Tampa, and they look like New York, Gulfstream cast-offs. Like they're not running as well as they should. And all of a sudden, the light switch went on.
Yep.
He's been a completely different horse ever since. And who would have known 10 months later the horse was going to be racing for $1 million? He's a very interesting horse. Never discount Shug in this spot. Definitely a use for me. And I wouldn't be a race without me giving you a bomb that I think is worth talking about. Aquaphobia has got a shot here.
Yeah.
Aquaphobia last time paired up with Joe Bravo won the Grade 1 United Nations. Now,
which was a weak Grade 1, and it reminds me a lot of this race.
That's exactly what I was just saying. Was it an elite Grade 1? No. But it was not much different than this race. Now, what happened? He went in against the Razor Sharp Channel Maker and the Sword Dancer and did not fare well, and then ran against, Red Knight and Postulation in the Sycamore and did not fare well there either. The Red Smith was kind of a weird race. He was really, really far back early. And I don't know if he's going to circle back to his best form or not, but he does get reunited with Joe Bravo. He's a horse that could jump up with a big race at any time. He's 8 years old. Does he have one more bullet in the chamber? Maybe. But at 20-1, which is probably what he's going to be in this race, I think he's worth including on your tickets to try to liven up those exotics.
We move to the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. I mean, talk about weird trajectory for horses, right? You get Nix Go, who wins the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity at 70-1. He comes back in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 40-1 and runs second. And then he's 0 for his next 9, and he only finishes in the top 3 twice. He just is bad. And really, he comes into the Brad Cox barn. He goes back to back to back, monster wins. He's the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and just dusts the field. And now he's going to be the favorite in this $3 million race. He's no doubt the one to catch, the one to beat. It's just, does he get the kind of trip he needs? Does he get the lone F trip on the front end? And does he want to go the additional distance? He's got to prove it going 1 mile and 1/8. But, I mean, he's talking about form reversals and just looking like a new animal.
Yeah, what can you say? He beat me in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
Me too.
I'm not going to play that kind of horse. And to be honest with you, I'm probably not playing him here because I think he's going to get more pressure here, and he's going to have to show me that he can run that kind of a race outside of Keeneland. Now I know he ran a big race at Oaklawn as well, but that field versus this field are two different things.
Yep.
And he's going to have to show me that he can run a 108 Beyer speed figure away from Keeneland. He beat Jesus' team in the Dirt Mile, who, came back to win the claiming crown jewel. But if you go back and watch that race, it was not impressive.
No.
He was on his hands and knees in life and death to beat Storm Runner and Dak Daniels, who are just not anywhere close to the competition that he's seeing here. And the more I look at this race, it's not a sexy pick. Everything in my gut tells me that Code of Honor is supposed to win.
I'm right there with you. It just feels like such a good spot for him.
It does.
He's faced so much better horses throughout, and he just feels like he's an actual Grade 1 horse where a lot of these aren't. He can, he was a lot closer up last time out than it even looks. He was kind of close up 6, couple off, and then he was in some traffic. He was in the second flight. He's in between. He's kind of waiting for room. He got a great opening. No doubt about that. He got a nice opening late, and he couldn't get by Bodie Express, but he was still better than most. And I just think, I hate this horse. I had him in my fantasy league last year. I thought he was going to have a monster year, and he really disappointed me. And it's the start of the year, I'm going to go right back to him. But I'm with you. It feels like his spot.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, this is one of those races that I get in trouble because everything that I see tells me that Code of Honor is supposed to win this race.
Yep.
And on top of it, I'm completely against, and I'm not saying I'm completely against Nix Go, because if he just, if he goes to the lead and wins for fun, it's not going to shock me by any stretch. Mm-hmm. But there are horses here that are, morning line contenders in their price that I am completely against. Jesus' team, I don't like at all. I think Tax has no chance here.
I had no Tax for me. No, thank you.
I mean, wire to wire in the Holland, he ain't getting to the front here. And, you take a look at what he did last year in this race. He's got 2 starts since then. The Oakland Handicap, he was a virtual non-factor. I think that last race was a complete phony against Eye of a Jedi and Fat Man, who would be completely destroyed in this field. Tax for me is a complete toss. Mr. Freeze for me is a toss in this race.
I don't like Mr. Freeze in here at all either. Yeah.
I don't like him from the outside, having the stalk speed from post 11. For me, this race, the way I'm going to bet, Code of Honor is got to be, 1-2 for me in this race to hit. And I'm going to give you a couple of horses that I think have a shot that are horses that in a million years, if you would have asked me for horses for this race like 5 months ago, I would have never do either of these horses. Sleepy Eyes Todd has a shot.
Absolutely. Right? He's so honest.
As crazy as that sounds, look, he draws the inside. The horse is just so versatile. He did, going 1.1 miles around 17 turns at Charlestown is not an easy thing to do. He wired the field that day. The Awesome, again, you have to forgive running against Improbable and Maximum Security.
That's way better.
Way better than what he's running against here. Then he goes to the Lafayette at 7 furlongs, gets away dead last. And just it's like watching the stretch of that race was like watching Dominic Toretto in Fast and the Furious when we get to the end of the race and he says too soon, Junior, and flips on the nos and just takes off. Because that's what the last 1/8 of a mile of that race looks like with this horse. And his Mr. Prospector was a really, really good race, beating Forense Fire and Mind Control, who are good horses. The 2 turns 1.1 miles is a bit of a question. It's different than running that race at Charlestown. I think he could work out a trip here at a
great trip. Stalking from the inside, maybe third. I could see him right behind, not right behind Nick's Go, but just in a nice stalking trip, or maybe just a little farther back behind. He's so versatile. He's so honest. To me, I must use him everywhere. I'm using him with Code of Honor. I'm using Sleepy Eyes Todd.
Yep. And then there's one other horse that, from a speed figure standpoint, and again, I didn't get the thoroughgraphs yet, so I haven't confirmed this, but from a speed figure standpoint, has a chance and would be a really, really cool story to win this race, and it's Harper's First Ride.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's quite up to this level of competition yet. He did win the Pimlico Special, granted a bit of a watered-down edition. I don't know what happened in the Maryland Millions Classic. There's no reason why he should have lost a Monday morning quarterback. But he's come back and bounced back quite well from that race.
It was mainly just he just broke slowly, and Monday morning QB just went. It wasn't even that much of a race I would knock or hold against Harper's First Ride either. Yeah.
His last 2 races have been, again, obviously not against this level of competition, but he did what he was supposed to do, and he ran triple digit by a speed figure in the process. The question with him is shipping. When he shipped to Monmouth, he didn't run well. When he shipped to Aqueduct, he didn't run well. Maybe he's just a horse for the course at Laurel, but the horse is 10 for 17 lifetime and deserves a chance here. Maybe he's not a major win contender, but he's got a shot to be involved in this race. So for me, when I bet this race, Code of Honor is going to be a key for me. Sleepy Eyes Todd and Harper's First Ride are going to be, in the mix with me. And you're not going to see any Jesus' team. You're not going to see any Tax, and you're not going to see any Mr. Freeze on my tickets. So I have a pretty strong opinion here. I'm either going to be really, really right or really, really wrong, Gino.
Yeah, we're pretty close here with I'm Sleepy Eyes Todd and Code of Honor everywhere. I might play some sort of a ticket even when I single like a pick 5 with Code of Honor here would be a nice one to try to just use everyone I like in the races before him to get to Code of Honor and maybe see if he can do what we think. Another ticket with Sleepy Eyes Todd. Nick's Go, I'll play one with him too, because like we said, it's not like a favorite that I absolutely hate. I can very much see versions of this race where he just clears the field. And I'm going to play at least on a few. I've chased Independence Hall a few times. I thought he was going to run such a big one behind Charlatan last time out. I thought he would get that kind of trip behind Charlatan and Nashville. He didn't. And this is such a weird move now off of that race to stretch out and go 1.1 miles in the Pegasus off of a disappointing 5th in the Malibu. But there's just something weird about him that I want to make sure I have on a few tickets at a massive price in case he outruns his odds. So, DZ, we got to... Yeah.
I tend to think he's a one-turn miler, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he certainly has a chance to develop into a nicer horse. We've seen flashes of brilliance from him for sure. I just don't necessarily think this is the trip that he wants.
Darin Zoccali, awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much, buddy. Like always, we were able to cover some good ground there on the stakes at Gulfstream Park. I know you'll be posting a lot of stuff about Turfway. You've been doing some handicapping there, a lot of really good stuff for Twin Spires. And then on Pegasus Day, you're usually one who's posting along with the big races. Where can we follow you?
Yeah, I'll be on Twitter at @TheTrack7. I'll be posting my thoughts throughout the day. But once the Thoroughgraph sheets will come out later tonight or tomorrow, so I'll have a bit more. Probably a bit better feel for how I feel about some of these horses in the next 48 hours. But I'll definitely be posting my best plays. And one thing that I try to do is I try to post my actual tickets whenever possible so that people actually see. I'm not just
how you structure and that you're betting them too. Yeah,
I'm betting. I feel really strong about this. And look, I'm betting this race like this, and here are my tickets so that the people could see I'm not just kind of blowing smoke and just giving some thoughts. I'm actually in there playing, which I know you are too, Gino. And I think that's
you get the angry text from me on these Saturdays sometimes when I miss it.
Oh yeah, 100%. How the hell did that horse just run that way? Oh yeah, 100%. But yeah, we'll be hot and heavy that day, and hopefully we can cash some tickets in some big spots.
Great stuff from one of our best friends here, Darin Zoccali. Thank you so much, buddy. Good luck this weekend.
You too, pal. Thanks a lot for having me again.
Okay, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with plenty more on. Huge Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Best of luck to everyone playing along. Thanks to Darin for helping us out there with that great Saturday card. Over at oldsmokeclothing.com, you horse racing fans can find tons of horse racing t-shirts, hats, zip-ups, quality clothing. There aren't a ton of places out there where they have great selection of horse racing memorabilia, gear, all sorts of things where you can make custom designs, you can check out special collections, or you can represent some of your favorites like Tiz the Law, Midnight Bisou, Authentic, She Dares the Devil, and you use the promo code GINO. It'll get you free shipping on your order. oldsmokeclothing.com. Show the horse racing fan in you. Moving along to some Saturday night racing, we head to Sam Houston, 9-race card on Saturday. Keep in mind now that at Sam Houston this weekend, it's probably going to be wet on Thursday. They had the races taken off of the grass, so if you're handicapping those races, make sure you give a look to horses in the grass races that may be coming off, because they may be dirt races too. So you want to handicap for both, or just keep an eye on that as each day comes, Friday night and then Saturday night. So best of luck at Sam Houston on Saturday. Andrew joins me. Let's hope we can lead you to a few winners. Here's the conversation. We start in race number 5. Get those past performances out for Sam Houston, January the 23rd. Saturday night, Sam Houston. Andrew Champagne joins me. We're going to talk about the late pick 5 for Sam Houston. Just 12% takeout. What's cool, if you're not a pick 5 player, don't worry. We're going to talk about races 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But if maybe you just want to play a pick 3 or a double or a pick 4, you have the opportunity to play all of those in the sequence of races that we're talking about. And all of those for 12% takeout. Really awesome, Andrew. We continue to talk positively about Sam Houston because they're such a fan of the better. I'm a takeout snob. You know that, so I love this. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. I'm happy to be here. We were just talking before we hit record. It's a good pick 5 sequence. A lot of different directions you can go in. Decent-sized fields, a couple of short-priced favorites. If you beat the short-priced favorites, this thing is going to pay stacks. The question is, can you beat the short-priced favorites, especially in races 7 and 9?
We've got a 1-5 favorite on the morning line. 1-5 on the morning line.
That rarely happens. I'm not going to say never happens, but it's rare. And if they're playing a stable duel game on Saturday, understand that if you want to use that horse, it's going to cost you.
Yeah. And the race following that is actually an even money favorite. So we've got 2 races that are going to have heavy favorites. You'll have to kind of sort of decide on what you want to do with them. We'll talk about those as we get there. Let's talk about race number 5 at Sam Houston. Now, just keep in mind, we are recording this on Thursday night, and Thursday the races came off the turf, and it looks like it wouldn't be a surprise if throughout the weekend these races were off the grass. So just keep that in mind if we talk about the races that are on the turf, or if we mention things for turf or things for off the grass. Make sure you go back and look before you make your plays. I'm sure you'll be able to tell with horses that are scratched or not. But so this race, 5 furlongs, if it's on the grass, it's really difficult because the two horses that feel like they're the most likely winners, they're not really consistent. Like Lina Rink and Zabet sort of feel like they could get the trips here sitting off the pace a little bit, but they're no win machines. Zabet is 0 for the last 13. Lina Rink just won, but she's only won for her last, 16 or so? Where do you start with this one, Andrew?
Well, I'm happy you mentioned the turf dirt situation because there are a lot of horses in here that are not turf horses. They're dirt horses. They're trying the turf or they're hoping the race comes off. So it's a completely different race if this race comes off the turf. I handicapped as though it was a turf race. My top selection is actually number 3, Texas Music. I think it's safe to assume something went wrong last time out because we haven't seen the horse since early October. Makes the first start for William Martin, who does great work off the layoff. He's 23% with similar length layoffs. Big ROI of $3.12. Has a lot of early speed. The question with that one is, does this horse want a synthetic track as opposed to a turf course? Now, this is a low-level race compared to some of the ones she's been running at Presque Isle, so maybe that'll help her out a little bit. But I think she's got a lot of early speed and is certainly one to watch. I am using Lina Rink. Fun fact, that is an Ithaca shout-out. Lina Rink is the home rink of the Cornell Big Red ice hockey team.
Nice. Cool.
So, yeah, that horse actually, I believe, started the career in New York for New York-based connections, wound up going through the claiming ranks, wound up on the Texas-Oklahoma circuit. I'm using Lina Rink. The 5 furlongs makes me a little bit nervous because she's not an early speed type, but she did just beat similar last time out. And I'll also use a little bit of a price in the form of number 6, Apollina. Yep. The one time this horse ran on the turf at Sam Houston, she won, and that was probably the best race she's ever ran. So I need to use her, especially at her likely price. And 3, 5, and 6 for me.
Yeah, the trip that she had feels like the type of trip that could win this race. She sat about a length off, was just kind of sitting off the pace, and then moved early when she had the right time to do so and was able to get to the lead early. It was back in February, so we're not talking all that long ago. And last time out, she broke on top, and she really battled all the way. She just got nailed by a horse named Stay Thirsty, My Amigo, who came over here and has already won at the current meet at Sam Houston. Right there on January the 8th. I'm sorry, I was talking about that race. Smoke another one here, Gino. But Andrew, pick 4, pick 5 wise. You're 3, 5, 6. I need 6 everywhere. I've got the 5 Lina Rink as a horse that I still probably have to use because she feels like the most likely winner, even though she's not consistent. It's just that kind of a group. Other price horses that I might look to, the 7 Isabel's Joy, who really, really dusted a group at Sam Houston last time out. And sort of what you mentioned, if this race comes off the grass, this isn't a race that's actually going to get impacted all that much. I think a lot of these horses probably entered this race thinking that it might just stick on the dirt anyway. So your opinion and your handicap will change a little bit, but it won't be a really small field that I think will be impacted a whole lot by that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if this race does come off the turf, Isabel's Joy hits me as the horse to beat if she runs anything close to the race that she ran last time out. Now, the question is, that was her first race since September. She came off a little bit of a layoff. She's 5 years old. You don't see older horses bounce quite as much, but that was a pretty big increase. This is a much tougher group. If it comes off the turf, I'll probably have to use her. If it stays on turf, though, I'll try to beat her.
Yeah, this I wouldn't talk you off of going spreading out a little bit in this race, especially, depending on what you're going to do later with some of the chalks. Either you're using them or maybe you take stands against them. That Love and Feeling has an okay enough turf race compared to this group. If it does stay on grass, that's a race that's decent enough to be competitive here as we move.
Hey, Gino, before we move on, what happened the morning that Love and Feeling lost the rider? The rider lost that love and feeling.
Oh, I knew you were going there.
Thank you.
Oh, I knew you were going.
I've been watching a lot of the Up, Up, Down, Down Uno broadcasts where Cesaro just cuts dad jokes the whole time. I'm inspired, damn it.
That is great. We move on for your late pick 4, starting in race number 6. This one is a maiden $7,500 claimer, mile on the turf course. Where do you begin?
I wish I could have some sort of conviction in this race. You bring me on because most of the time I have very strong opinions. I got none here. Your likely favorite in this race is the 3 Trophy Daddy.
Nothing to do with that horse.
0 for 20.
And not even good, like doesn't look good the last couple races doing so, just very non-threatening type races where you're just,
Yeah. Your likely second choice, number 6, Meaningful. 0 for 19 for a barn that was 3 for 64 in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Gino, if you have any conviction on anything here, more power to you. This was one of those races that to me hit me as though I was looking at hieroglyphics. It's a 7-horse field. For a multi-race exotics ticket, especially one where I've got a couple of singles, it's not too cost prohibitive to hit the all button.
It's not.
I usually don't like doing that. I don't like relying on that as a crutch. Sometimes it feels like you're trying to take the easy way out here. It's a maiden claiming event for horses in for $7,500 tags. Your favorite's 0 for 20. Your second choice is 0 for 19. The one intriguing horse in here, and I don't even know if it's a good intriguing or a bad intriguing to me. Number 7, Fearless Prince, looks like he'll make the lead, right?
Yeah, I think so. And for that reason, I think the 7 and the 5, and that, you're using all. I thought the 7 and the 5 would be horses that I'd want on my ticket because I wouldn't be shocked if either one of those somehow got the lead. Like, let's say the 7 just doesn't break all that well. The 5's not slow, stretching out. I think the 7's quicker. So I thought the Beggar Thy Star has a little bit of a shot to get in the mix here with this group, even though they're moving from Texas breds or from Oklahoma bred. That was the state bred there up into open company here. I don't think this is that strong of a group to where it really matters. The 1 was the other horse that intrigued me a little bit. I just thought his last race, visually, the replay, it was a little bit better than it looks on paper. He was 5th inside. He was about 4-5 lengths off, and it was a race where there just wasn't a whole lot of passing going on. So sort of like a merry-go-round race. It was okay that day. I need the 5. I need the 1. I need the 2 on my tickets. And I actually have one ticket mapped out where I went all but the 3. And just playing it, because if I'm going to go all, I'm fine chucking the 3, especially if and how you're playing the next couple races that we have coming up. Because if you're going to be, if you like the favorites in the next few races and you think they are much more likely winners than this one, which I do, I think either of the heavy favorites coming up are much more likely to win their races than this horse as a short price to win this one. I'm okay chucking this horse out, going deep. I need 5, 1, 2. I sort of ranked them like 5, 1, 2, 4, 7, 6, 3, how I like them with their prices, with the 2, offers at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, from a value standpoint, if Trophy Daddy is anywhere close to the 2-1 morning line, that's a favorite you're supposed to try to beat. Mm-hmm. And if that horse beats you, you tip your cap and you move on. Yep. This is a horse that's 0 for 20, hasn't been particularly close, goes out for a barn that was 0 for 31 last year. Look, if a maiden is 0 for 8, 0 for 10, that's one thing. Around 0 for 12, 0 for 15, I start becoming done with the horse and just let that horse beat me. I'm looking at this race, and while I understand there isn't a whole lot in the way of proven form signed on, 2-1 on that horse? Ugh.
Yeah, not for me. But we do move on to the 7th race. We're going to go to some Texas breds, maidens, fillies, mares, 4-year-olds, and up a mile on the turf course. And we've got a 1-5 shot on the morning line. You just don't see it all too often. And you look at Catch the Devil and you go, really, 1-5? But then you look at the rest of the field and you go, okay, I sort of understand, because there's just nothing else in here that is proven whatsoever. The second choice in this race at 8-1 is the 2 Knight in Red Satin, who actually you can make some cases for this horse to show improvement in this spot. The problem is back on July the 27th, she tried to settle, lost a few lengths, lost a little momentum. But another horse who had trouble that day too was Catch the Devil, and Catch the Devil just swooped the field and just crushed Knight in Red Satin, even with trouble that day. Finishing, I think, second. I just don't know how to approach this. Are you just going to take the free square and move on?
That's what I'm going to do. Catch the Devil to me is in what I call a now or never situation. If Catch the Devil does not win this race, Catch the Devil might not win. This is a horse that has had some traffic trouble, gets an outside draw. I understand going wide on the turf is not ideal, but I prefer that to a horse that finds trouble getting caught in between horses and maybe mentally deciding, oh, I've seen this before, I don't like this, I'm just going to back out and be incredibly hard to handle. Second off a layoff, coming back to the turf. Again, turf race. We think this is going to be a turf race, but even if this race goes to dirt, this one's still got a big shot. Now, if you're playing vertical exotics and you're looking for a horse underneath at a bit of a price, I thought the horse directly inside of Catch the Devil was interesting. That's Tahitian Breeze. Tahitian Breeze debuted, wasn't particularly well fancied that day at 14-1, was one paced going 6 furlongs. I like horses like that stretching out second time out, has a 310 Turf Tomlinson number, and there's bottom side pedigree that indicates this one might be okay. Her dam was a half to 5 winners, was by Dynaformer, so there's a big turf influence there. Too Much Bling is the sire. That's a sprinter influence, but the sire back from that is Rubiano. That's a little bit of turf there. It would not surprise me if Tahitian Breeze ran well enough to hit the board. It would surprise me, however, if she won. I think Catch the Devil is a single and move on type horse.
Okay, I'm going to get a little crazy with one horse that I'm going to use along with Catch the Devil. And it'll be because in the next race I'm going to take a swing against the other chalk. So it'll be sort of the way I approach my my ticket here. I think the 6 here has some upside. So you look at Why Not Dan, who debuted against open maiden special weights at Louisiana Downs, first time out. That's a decent race, finishing second. That's not a bad race at all whatsoever. So in career start number 2, you step foot on the grass and you're only 5-1 that day, and you come out of a race where you're just never involved, but it's actually very live. Multiple next out winners in the debut. This horse actually finished in front of a next out winner, then hits the slop. I think you can excuse that race against maiden specials. And then a couple races where, again, open maiden special weights against tougher. This is not a strong spot. I'm not talking about a horse that's going to be 5-2. I'm talking about a horse that's going to be probably 15-1. So, of course, she doesn't look great on paper. But even the last race she came out of, she lost to a horse named Maddie's Music, who came back to win a $7,500 non-2 next out. The horse who was the runner-up that day, Salacious Accusation, great name for a horse, won her next 2 races in a row. So she actually has 2 winning turf siblings, and stretching out, I'd imagine she's going to be the one to catch probably in here. There's not that. I mean, if Catch the Devil decides to sit from the outside and just says, let's just sit second because we're probably the best in here. Leslie is aggressive, and I think with Catch the Devil, that is a big jock upgrade actually with Leslie jumping aboard because he does a really good job of getting aggressive. I'll just use those 2. I'll hook them up in some exotics. Maybe the 2 below them as another one to mention. I had him, and then the Tahitian Breeze was the other horse that you had that I had also. I had him 6-8 with 2 and 7 below them. But I will throw the 6 on some tickets because I could see this horse having like a length on the field turning for home, and me getting a little bit nervous if I didn't have her on my ticket with a horse like Catch the Devil, who's no win machine, having like being the one to try to come and get her.
When a horse like that is 15-1, you don't need many reasons to throw a horse on the ticket if you think the horse could potentially have even the slightest chance against a really big favorite. Because, look, if Why Not Dan wins this race at 15-1 or even bigger,
beating a 1-5,
exactly. That's how you make money in these multi-race sequences. For me, the issue was twofold. One, it's going 2 turns. We don't know if this horse wants any part of that.
Total wild card.
2, I don't know if this horse wants to go on the turf. I thought the race at Louisiana Downs, yes, it was against a tougher group. But when you get a running line that says never close.
It's always a great one, right?
Yeah.
It's always confidence inspiring.
Yeah. And I understand she's by Magician, which you'd think would be a turf influence. But if her connections thought this was a turf horse, you'd think they would have been more aggressive in finding turf spots, at least in some way, shape, or form. So for me, Why Not Dan is certainly a pace factor. And I'm certainly not going to talk you off of that horse if you like her. I just prefer others in this spot, and I think the bomb of choice underneath would probably be Tahitian Breeze for me. But Catch the Devil just seems like the class of this group, if you can call it that.
We move to race number 8 at Sam Houston, and Devilish Wit will be your likely heavy favorite. Even money on the morning line for Asmussen for Elliott, a horse who ran at Keeneland in the debut, was 5-2 at Keeneland in a race that's come back live, actually broke on top from the rail, cleared the field, then got a couple challenges, and then had to sort of tuck back from the inside. A couple siblings that won their debut, which she didn't win her debut, but it just shows the family has a little precocity there. What are you doing with Devilish Wit?
Devilish Wit would make a lot of sense. I think I've said this before on a couple of different shows with you and on my own show. Steve Asmussen does this. He will take these ridiculously bred horses that struggled first time out at Churchill, at Keeneland, in the New York circuit, and he'll bring them to Sam Houston so that they at least get a win before they go off to the breeding shed, because winning daughter of Tappet is a heck of a page to have. Now, I'm using Devilish Wit. It would not be a shock if Devilish Wit was just miles the best in this race, but I don't think the race is just as simple as that one. I think Sweet Adeline, horse number 4 in the program, ran really well first time out, well enough to be bet down to 3-5 at second asking, and then just flopped. If you believe in the bounce, I think you have to believe in the bounce back. I think she might be well meant. And I'm also going to get a little crazy with a first-time starter in the form of number 7, Tis a Feelin', who's 15-1 on the morning line, and I don't think is going to be 15-1 at post time simply because of the connections. Brett Calhoun is just too good a trainer to go unnoticed by the bettors. Lindy Wade's a really good jockey. I love the last 2 workouts, the last 3 actually. You get a first-time starter going 6 furlongs in 1:13-3 in the mornings. That's a pretty big work. Couple of good 5 furlong works before that, plus an outside draw, which could help a first-time starter. I think there's stuff to like. 4, 6, and 7 for me.
And I believe the lone Sib is running. I'm just checking right now. I think on Friday. That is "Tis a New Day." "Tis a New Day"? Yes, it is.
I knew there was a reason you were looking that up.
The number 9, "Tis a New Day," is running on Friday night. I actually have picked on top in race 7 at Sam Houston. Yeah, so the 7, "Tis a Feelin'," with a family that's going to be we're going to be seeing run before we see this race on Saturday. I love the 4. I'm going to single the 4, Sweet Adeline on one ticket, and then that's why I can go 6-8 in the other race and use a horse along with the big favorite and maybe try to beat that horse. But in this race, I think Sweet Adeline, the debut race, was excellent. I really, really liked it. And then last time out was just about a length and a half off and just didn't really have a lot on the inside. There were 5 others that lined up in front and tried to kind of weave through traffic, but she had to go back and forth, sort of losing momentum, getting beat to spots. It was a better race than it looks on paper. There was a legitimate excuse that day. You could see anytime you see a running line like that where a horse is like 7th, but they're only a length behind, it's usually because something goofy is going on in the race. And that was the case with Sweet Adeline, who has enough speed to be right on the lead, to be very competitive with Devilish Wit if they want to go. I don't even know how fast Devilish Wit really is. I actually think Sweet Adeline might be able to get in front of that one if they wanted. So I'm going to single the 4 on a ticket. I do think the 2, Fearless factor, on the jock switch alone, You mentioned the barn, Shadalakana barn, that just doesn't win a whole lot of races. And now you pick up an aggressive rider like Luzzy for a horse who actually showed a little bit of ability in the debut, finishing fourth, where it was close up on the inside, was in tight, then had to back out, lost a couple lengths. Another weird running line. You see the horse was like up in third, and then all of a sudden is back 5 lengths out, and then doesn't just tire, kind of comes around. One of my notes was terrible ride, big jock upgrade. So I'm expecting this one is another horse I'll use on a pick 4 ticket. And even the 1A, I'm okay with throwing in Hatchet Girl. I kind of like horses like this, Andrew, when they loom up in their debut race and they flatten out, you get a little bit more bottom. I know there's enough tactical speed and some ability. I just, maybe now with a little bit more fitness from her, she could at least be a horse I could throw into some exotics. So of the favorites we talked about, the big ones in race 7 and race 8, I think we both agree that Devilish Wit seems more vulnerable than the heavy 1-5 favorite in race 7.
One note before we move on, I really hope at some point soon they try Fearless Factor on the turf. Buy the Factor out of a Montjou mare. That is all turf. That's as good a turf pedigree as you're going to find on a horse on this circuit. And I certainly can't fault you for finding some positives there. Horses step forward at second asking. This is a barn that won at 18% last year. The inside draw to me is a little bit of a concern, especially because I just don't think she's quite as quick as Sweet Adeline or even Ultimate Force, the 3-horse. So having said that, though, there's some stuff to like.
And we move to race number 9, closing things out. We got a $5,000 claimer where you can either have not won a race since July the 23rd or never won 4 mile the distance in here. We do have a Jonathan Wong horse showing up. We'll start to see more of them now with a couple of horses that he has over there at Sam Houston. This mare was one that he claimed at Los Alamitos and was facing just better horses last time out. I mean, to be honest, has been facing better for a while here in Southern California, now in 4-5, and a horse who's proven on the dirt too. I think I have to use him. I have to use her. I sort of prefer her even a little bit more than the 7, Cotton Candy Kisses, who's going to be moving from some of those Oklahoma bred races against now Open Company. I see another speed or two in here maybe also, so I'm not sure if she's going to get that nice cozy trip she got last time out. I do like Bonesboro Beauty a little bit more, so I'll prefer her of the favorites here. Who do you need to try to close this thing out?
Bonesboro Beauty is a single for me in this race, and
I can see that.
Anything close to 3-1 would represent real value. The race 2 back is the one that I'm going to focus on. She ran third in an $8,000 race, not on this circuit, but at Del Mar, okay? So 8,000 claimer at Del Mar, 2 starts later, she's at Sam Houston. The horse that won that race was a horse named Page Runner who got very, very good late last year and early this year. They actually tried her very aggressively in an allowance race at Santa Anita just a couple of days ago. That proved to be a little bit too tough, but still, this is a horse that has been hitting her stride and has certainly come around. She was third that day. She was nowhere near as close to the pace as she needed or wanted to be. I think she's going to be in this race pretty prominently from the jump. I don't like Cotton Candy Kisses. I don't like betting horses off of perfect trips last time out.
Nope.
When you get an uncontested lead in 25, 50-1, 115-1 going a mile, there's something wrong if you don't win that race. And she won by 6 lengths, and that's fine and dandy. That was against Oklahoma breds.
She was 20-1 that day, and she wasn't consistent, really. She hasn't been consistent, and now she steps up and I'm supposed to take her at 2-1. No, thank you.
Yeah, that's for sure. She ran okay here a couple times last season. It wouldn't shock me if she hit the board, but I can't bet that horse to win off of that kind of effort and off of the possibility that there might be a bounce this time, just off the buyer speed figure. She had been hovering in the low to mid 40s or even the high 30s. She ran a 64 last time out. I don't think she can replicate that, and she might have to in order to beat Boonsboro Beauty. If there's another horse in here that you're going to use underneath or on smaller tickets, the class dropper that I would use actually is number 3 Tickle Bunny, who gets a gigantic trainer switch from a 4% barn to Danny Pish and drops down significantly in class. The last time she ran for a $5,000 tag, she was beaten just ahead, was disqualified and placed third that day, but still a very good effort at Remington. I think that's the one that on tickets where I single the 5, I'm going to be a little bit worried about. Lane Luzzy, Danny Pish, lot to like there, obviously. But for me, Boonesboro Beauty coming in for Jonathan Wong, I think she is absolutely the horse to beat. And if she is not favored, I will have a pretty substantial win bet on her.
I'm going to use 3 horses as my top tier A horses, however you want to describe them. You mentioned 2 of them, the 3 Tickle Bunny and the 5 Boonesboro Beauty. The one that I'm going to throw in as a big price that I think, I can make cases for, this is something that you and I do quite a bit. You look at a horse like She's Too Cool and you say, okay, 2 poor races in a row. One of them sent to the bench for a while. One of them coming off the bench for a while.
The toss 2 angle.
The toss 2. You put a line through those 2 races, then dig into this horse's form a little bit more. She actually would fit with everything she was doing prior to that. Those races at Louisiana, they would stack up. You look back, she's got a couple poor races. Well, they were at Oaklawn Park earlier in the year when Oaklawn Park in April especially, look at that race. That was against a much, much tougher group. Even though it was Archie Breds, that was a loaded group. I think there's enough speed for her to just try to send from the inside and say, hey, that's got to be the game plan in here. We can maybe get a couple lengths on this field. Let's try to get aggressive. I think at 15-20-1, she's worth throwing in, especially if you're playing small tickets from, singling the 1-5 and singling some horses earlier in the sequence. You're going to want to have at least one leg where you give yourself a couple opportunities for some prices. If it's not this one, that's fine. But if this is the race you're looking to spread out a little bit, there's a lot worse that you can do, Andrew, with the horse that's got some early speed that's going to be stretching out that we can make some excuses for. If she had run a good race in either of her last 2, she'd be 5-1 in here and not 15 or 20.
The one concern I have here, as my cat jumps on me and has deemed this of all times as an acceptable cuddle time, is it seemed as though her form took a big downward turn after the trainer switch away from Steve Asmussen. Now, no disrespect to the current barn, that's a 10% barn. It would not surprise me if that barn got her turned around, but I'm not sure whether the last 2 efforts are the toss 2 situation of something going wrong and then needing a race, or if it's a situation where she's just had trouble going to a new program. I concede, though, a lot of the 2020 races she ran at Louisiana and then before that at Oaklawn and Remington, she's absolutely got back form that's good enough. The question is, can she channel it? And that becomes a little bit less of a burden when you're talking about a horse that's going to be 20-1 as opposed to 4-1.
That's exactly what I was going to counter with. I'm glad you mentioned it because you're absolutely right. It's good when you have a conversation with any of your friends like we do here when we cover the races because you talk things out and then it's that you're right. The counter is she absolutely may have just not be the same horse now, which she's in a different barn, not the same as, Asmussen's one of the best barns, right? There are very few that are going to move you up off Asmussen, but I'm willing to give that a chance. I'm willing to be okay with that may not be the fact because of the price. The price always building into it has to be a key, right? If this horse was a shorter price, I would look at you and say, yeah, you know what? At that much of a price, there are some questions, but when we're getting up here in the 15-20, you can be so much more forgiving about things at this odds that you're expecting than when you get horses that are 5-1, 5-2 underneath, where the point of those horses is what we're kind of trying to do is find their issues, right? Find reasons why not to play them. Whereas with a horse like this, we're kind of only looking for 1 or 2 reasons to play them.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that goes back into ticket structure. If you've got a couple of horses that you really like earlier in the sequence and you can afford to spread out a little bit and you find a horse where you go, okay, do I think this horse is likely to win? Maybe not. Could this horse win? And most importantly, if this horse wins and I don't have it on my ticket, will I want to quit gambling, throw a fit on Twitter, announce a retirement from betting horses, and come back again tomorrow? If the answer to that last question is yes, you have to use the horse.
Exactly. Andrew Champagne helping us out here with the Sam Houston late pick 5 for Saturday. You're also all over Twitter a lot of these nights, because that's what I kind of like about Sam Houston night cards. We've sort of got a little group now over the last year and a half that seems like they play a lot of these tickets, a lot of the pick 4s, pick 5s in particular. They play a lot of the night racing, and we're talking with each other on Twitter, giving out some information. So give us the folks out there, where can we follow you, and what's going on with Champagne and JD this week?
Yeah, Twitter is at Andrew Champagne, of course. Champagne and JD this week is going to focus on the Pegasus World Cup. We've got Barry Spears coming by. We're actually taping that in about a half hour or so that's going to be fun. I've already seen all of our pick 4 tickets. Trust me, you're going to be getting 3 completely different approaches to the late pick 4 sequence on Pegasus Day. It's a really good betting card. We can talk a little bit about the quality of the Pegasus World Cup, not necessarily being up to snuff compared to what it probably should be given the desired stature of the race. But you know what? That got a 12-horse field. The Turf got a 12-horse field. The Grade 3 before that got a full field. And the race before that is a really good race for older fillies and mares that are sprinting on dirt, and that got some very good horses as well. It's a fun card. Really excited to be able to go through that, and hopefully excited to make a little bit of money playing that card as well. Champagne and JD on YouTube. You can go there, check out what we do, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our weekly updates. Twitter is at Andrew Champagne. Lots going on, and I mean a lot going on, particularly this week.
Andrew, buddy, always love the work that you do. Thank you for helping us out here. The folks on That's What G Said love hearing from you. Tell Barry, tell JD I said hello, and we will be talking to you next week with more old wrestling rewatch.
Sounds good, man. I'll talk to you later.
Don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to take a quick break on That's What G Said. We'll be back with plenty more. Big thanks to Andrew. Nice handicapping, as always. It's interesting when you have to navigate a sequence like that where you've got a heavy 1-5 favorite on the morning line. Do you play? Do you play against? How is your approach going to be in that late pick 5 sequence on Saturday at Sam Houston? I know that when I head over to sarahcandles.com, I'm going to get a winner because I am going to get a quality candle, all natural, soy wax, free from toxins, none of those carcinogens or pollutants that are found in a lot of the other leading brands, lead-free cotton wicks, locally sourced, handcrafted in the USA, 25 different scents available, and they offer you a little bonus because you're a listener of That's What G Said. When you use the promo code GINO, you get 10% off your purchase. This is a perfect gift for someone. Valentine's Day coming up. A great gift. A couple candles for one of your friends, family members, loved ones. sarahcandles.com, CERA candles.com. Use that promo code GINO. It'll get you 10% off of your purchase. Final segment on this episode of That's What G Said. We're going to go over everything that's been happening in the last week of wrestling. So we talk about Smackdown, we talk about Monday Night Raw, we talk about AEW Dynamite, and some thoughts on NXT with Chad Cooper. Everything happening in the world of wrestling this week in wrestling with Chad Cooper. We are back for another segment of This Week in Wrestling on That's What G Said. Our buddy Chad Cooper here to talk with us about everything going on in the world of wrestling. We've got Smackdown, we've got Raw, we've got AEW to talk about. Koopa Loop, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. Still licking my wounds a little bit from the Cleveland Browns kind of debacle from last weekend. But you know what? Fantastic season. They covered the spread, so I look forward to next football season already.
And I got to say, before we get into our wrestling, of all the teams that lost last week, and really everyone who's lost in the last few weeks, you never want to take positives from losing, but it feels like they are one of the teams that are on the improve. They're on the way up. I mean, 1 or 2 bounces, the touchdown that becomes a touchback, that's a different game, and they're playing this weekend in the conference championship. So I got to say, between Baker, Stefanski, the organization, they did a damn good job this year.
Yeah, it's a fun season. It was a great ride. Big, first time making to the playoffs in quite some time, winning a playoff game and having a chance to win the second round. So, no, all good. All good.
Okay, let's talk about everything going on in the world of wrestling. We'll get back to last week at Smackdown first. And I got to say, the Roman Reigns stuff is really, really good. I'm really enjoying this. We've got Roman and Paul Heyman, and they're changing the stipulations for the title match at Royal Rumble. A lot of people were upset for like a week. They said, oh, no, we're going to get Adam Pearce in one of the main event matches of the Royal Rumble. This guy never even really wrestled in WWE, and now he's going to be headlining a pay-per-view, this or that. But we knew there was a wrinkle coming up, and I got to say, like, for a guy who they never really he just sort of appeared on WWE TV one day. They never even really introduced him to you. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, there's executive Adam Pearce. I thought this stuff has been pretty good. So we had, Roman and Heyman changing the stipulation for the title match to a no DQ and then a falls count anywhere. And then we get the bait and switch at the end. I thought this was fine. And I think one thing that wrestling is missing a little bit nowadays are some of the episode-long storylines like we got on that Smackdown.
Yeah, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with KO and Roman Reigns. Are we tired? Is that the last match? The cage match. Uso helps again. But this was compelling writing, and that's where you have to give WWE a lot of credit. Yeah, they butcher to us fans what we think are butcher a lot of storylines and why they do this, why they do that. But SmackDown has been very, very good. It's a different show. Yeah, it's a different show than Raw, even though Raw is getting much, much better with the Alexa Bliss stuff. But, this storyline was great. I was mad. My favorite word to use, this is a joke. I said, this can't work. And then, lo and behold, they give us KO and they lead us to believe he has a legitimate shot at defeating Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. He probably won't, but it's a compelling storyline to bring him back.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is good, and we'll get a good match out of these two guys, and it was a good way to end with the bait and switch when Pierce is out there with the contract signing and he says, oh, you know what? I got a knee injury, card subject to change. And then KO signs the contract. That was good. And we can tell, Chad, one of the things that I've been reading is that one guy who is now becoming more heavily involved in the creative side on SmackDown is Daniel Bryan. And you can sort of tell through like the rebuilding of Nakamura, Cesaro. Daniel Bryan is like putting guys over right now because he wants to elevate all of them, and he knows that getting a win over him is a big deal. It's pretty amazing what they've done in just a few weeks with Nakamura. We got to say that for all the crap we give WWE, it seems like anytime they do one of these gauntlet match gimmicks, somebody really gets over, and they sort of run with them. I mean, Nakamura was floating around for like a year and a half in obscurity, and he actually feels like he has a legitimate shot to win the Royal Rumble right now after just a few weeks of kind of fixing him.
Yeah, they put a belt on him, and then, put him in a tag team. They win a tag team title here and there, and they kind of do this. And then lo and behold, we see Shinsuke of old, of why WWE signed this guy and brought him over to North America for us to enjoy him. And over the last couple of weeks, what he's been able to do, and then just another fantastic match from him. And of course, Jey Uso, who's a great worker. And then awesome. Cesaro's the same boat. Those guys were in a tag team together, and now we're starting to see this display. This is what we wanted on SmackDown when these guys were drafted over there. And with Daniel Bryan kind of leading the way, as you mentioned, we're seeing the best of these guys, and this is the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why WWE signed these guys to bring them over.
I completely agree. It's like you can stack a bunch of talent on your team, but if you don't have the right coaches, you don't have the right coordinators, it's just a bunch of guys. You're never getting the best out of them. Right now, it feels that way with a lot of them. Like, you just look at some of the guys there who are starting to get elevated. Someone like Apollo Crews,
yes,
right? I mean, we've always seen him as the smiley, happy-go-lucky Apollo. He's great in the ring, but he doesn't really say much. I like this version of Apollo Crews with some edge here. He comes off like a badass, and all it takes is putting him, like, reacting to a Paul Heyman, shot at you. You sit him next to Roman and Paul, and then he has one match where he rolls the tights. Now, look, he's sort of heelish, and he feels just like he's got a little personality to him now versus the kind of bland Apollo that we've seen for 2 years.
Just the little simple things, what it takes to get a WWE superstar over now is just one little segment. We laugh at, well, not we, but a lot of people make fun of Roman Reigns. A lot of people make fun of John Cena. Oh, they do that. They're so good with other talent. And just putting Apollo in the dressing room on the couch with Roman and Paul and just kind of sitting there and just,
it felt
Paul
right,
talking.
didn't it?
It was like, it wasn't okay, what is this guy doing here? And it ties in where he uses the trunks, the roll up to pin Sami Zayn. That's too good right there. That's good stuff.
It is. Those are little things that when we complain, we don't see those kind of things, right? But when we see them, I think we definitely have to say, wow, that was a good job. That was like really good storytelling here, dropping little hints, giving us little ideas of what's to come. I thought that was really good stuff. Sonya Deville as the authority figure. She's such a badass in the ring, like I'd like to see her in the ring as much as possible, but getting her on my TV, I'm fine with that. I think she's a talent, and hopefully this will lead to just more of her on the TV, getting her back in the ring a little bit more. I'm okay. But I guess with her and sort of with Billie Kay, one of the things I don't like is when they make a change and they don't seem to have a plan. Like Billie Kay's new gimmick was sort of fun. I do think that it was pretty funny when she dressed up in all the Punk gear. And this particular like little segment when she's coming down with the Riot Squad and they keep looking at her like, what the hell is she doing and wearing? And she's trying to celebrate with them and do the Punk. Like, I thought this was okay. But between here and what I see over on Raw with Peyton Royce, where she's kind of just been like flung back into a tag team, I love these girls as iconics, and I wish, I guess, knowing that they don't have much for the last couple months, I would have rather just see them stick together.
Yeah, Billie Kay is so entertaining. I guess you can't keep her off TV. You bring her in all these segments with her resume and her headshot. It's funny, but then, you kind of do the gimmick where she runs through the ring and she cost Liv Morgan the match. I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of her segments. But yeah, if you're going to separate them and then put Peyton Royce in a tag team with Lacey Evans, which that's kind of separated now with Lacey now with a feud with Charlotte Flair. Yeah, just stick them together. They're going to be in the Women's Royal Rumble, but just keep them together because they were popular. They were the tag team champions and never on TV, but they're too entertaining to keep off TV, especially Billie Kay, but she kind of just floats around here and there. I don't mind her bouncing from team to team, but I don't like her getting involved in these little hunky-dory style ending matches. We get some Dominic Mysterio and Ray, and Dominic is on commentary while Ray has got a match with Corbin. He actually mentions, and I don't know if I'd heard this before, that he and Ray possibly may go for the tag team championship. So I'm kind of a little interested in the Mysterios heading for the tag team titles, or maybe we get a situation where with the Royal Rumble coming up with both of them in there, does maybe son eliminate father and we get something there? With the Rumble coming up, there are some options, and the two of them in a tag situation, I think would sort of be feel good. A lot of people would get behind that. Yeah, and it's new. It gives a new tag team. It's kind of interesting what they're doing with Corbin too. I think they're just kind of filling in, buying time until we get to the Royal Rumble. We know the Royal Rumble is going to have so many twists and ups and downs, and that would be perfect. That would be perfect for the young one to throw the father over the top rope and eliminate him. They kind of teased it for a while, but then again, Buddy Murphy's not around. Anymore. You haven't seen him for a while, hadn't seen him for a while because, that storyline went away because Seth is taking time off, goes to Raw, comes to SmackDown. So, that would make, a breath of fresh air in a tag team division that's, kind of seems like the championship titles aren't really that important right now. So that would help if they make a run at it.
And one of the final things that we saw on SmackDown, we talked about Daniel Bryan. He had that awesome match with Cesaro. That Cesaro won, big for him. But we got Bayley with the Ding Dong Hello segment, which I actually thought was pretty funny. Bayley's done some great work as a heel, and so next week we've got the Obstacle Course Challenge with Bianca coming up. Gotta think that Bianca is on the very short list right now for possible winners of the Rumble.
Yeah, look, solid. Great in NXT, has been called up. Has had some good moments on some pay-per-views, had some good moments on Raw and, on SmackDown. Her and Bayley will be fun. Bayley's been entertaining since she went heel and cut her hair, and she could put anybody over. This will be a fun little gimmick as long as they don't draw it out too long like the Viking Raiders, that we had to see.
Give us 1 week of funny, goofy stuff.
1 week, that's it. Yeah, that 1 week, that's it, and then have a great match, and let's move on. And she's got to be one of the favorites to win the women's match for sure.
She's going to have a nice run, and she'll look really good doing some feats of strength where she eliminates maybe like Nia or a couple, at the same time. So expecting a big run for her. Let's take our run over from SmackDown to Raw. And sort of before, I guess, overall thoughts, the one guy in my head I keep thinking about right now with a few weeks, we haven't, he's had the kid with Becky. We haven't heard a lot about him. Are we going to get a Seth return at the Rumble? And then what generally happens when somebody comes back, they're a babyface. In my head, I want to just sort of close my eyes and eliminate a lot of the whole, Messiah and I picture Rollins as if you're looking at Roman Reigns, a few of the people that you can feel that would be a good matchup against him as a fiery babyface to come back and take the title from him. One guy that keeps coming up in my head is Seth. I just don't know if they want to bring him back as the version of Seth as the babyface to save the company type guy. But he feels like if they wanted to go in that direction, that's one of a few guys that you could put in the ring with Roman, that you've got all the stuff built up, and that you could say, oh yeah, Seth might be able to beat him. So I keep thinking about him as someone.
Yeah, and you get a clean start too. So if he comes back and makes a run and wins that, how great would Seth versus Roman be? In a title picture. So you get a clean start with him, and you could start over, and he's he comes back fresh, and that would be a great opportunity and kind of a new feud for Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns to go together.
They've never really been on that side, right? Because it was always heel Seth against Roman as the babyface, and the crowd never really knew what to do in that situation because they're like, hey, we like Seth more than Roman, and this isn't going to really. So maybe I could see Seth getting one of those Triple H pop sort of. Oh, he's back. People kind of forget what he's done the last 6 months. Seth Rollins comes out flying around off the top rope, hits a few crazy sling blades, and. So maybe that's wishful thinking for me because I've sort of always wanted the babyface version of Seth to be a little better than the ones that we've got in WWE. He's been so good as a heel. I do think that with the right push that he could be that guy, but we've seen WWE doesn't really write great for babyfaces. They do a better job for heels. As one of those heels with the new look old school lucha mask, Randy Orton, this little to open the Raw where he's talking and it made me sort of laugh. I thought it was pretty funny. It was really campy, and I enjoy that WWE is doing this Bray Fiend, Alexa, Orton Firewall stuff when there's no crowd there, because this is actually something they can try to do and make a little bit better with no live audience. Some of the cuts that they do with Alexa in the main event, some of the things they were able to do with the Fire. So you know what? It's hokey, but we saw hokey with Kane and The Undertaker a lot. I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by it. And I think that, hey, you know what? They're looking at this going, we still don't have a lot of fans. Let's try to do some things where we can maybe get a little creative, get outside the box. So he says that he's he keeps seeing the fireball coming at him. He said he should have buried Alexa first. He's basically like giving us the Cobra Kai. I showed you mercy, and then you burned me in the face. So no more mercy, no more mercy for you. And I mean, this is pretty funny. He says he's going to win the Rumble, and he says not only is he wearing the mask to protect himself, he's here to shield it. To shield all of us from the horror. It almost reminds me of the Cody Rhodes mask that he used to wear, right?
Sure.
You'd like hide from it. No, I'm disfigured. I couldn't help but keep laughing at this. It made me chuckle.
Yeah, every time we talk about how great Randy Orton is in the ring, out of the ring. Just another masterful promo, and it was great. They start off Raw with it, of course, because it was a crazy ending the week before with Alexa Bliss, as you mentioned. One of my favorite lines, "Damnation he received for showing compassion." And now you have the mask, and he's going to wear the mask in the Royal Rumble. I just think it's fun. It's kind of dark and demented. It's something that Raw needs. And to do it with Alexa Bliss with the Fiend off on TV, that shows you how strong Alexa Bliss is playing this character. She looks great. She's good in the ring. The pigtails, all that stuff, the cosplay stuff. But, man, that was such a great performance last Monday. And then to get this from Randy Orton to kind of tie it in. And then the main event and the segments. Man, it was solid, and I know there are a lot of Asuka fans out there, and I saw on Twitter they were really, really mad what happened. Asuka shouldn't be afraid of anyone, blah, 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 but man, put that belt on Alexa Bliss right now and let her go for a couple of weeks with this promo, because you only strike gold only once in a while with certain characters.
And you got to run with them.
You got to do it now. You got to do it now.
You can't put them on the back burner. We've seen them like Braun Strowman, for a perfect example, right?
Sure.
He was so hot. Give him the belt, run with it. You don't do it. You let him kind of sit. And then it's like by the time you give it to him, people don't really care. You got to do this right now. I agree. And the thing is and I disagree with the people who are Asuka fans that say that, because I love Asuka. Sure. I think she's phenomenal. She is on any short list of the absolute best, and I think she should always be someone who's in the main event picture. To me, she's sort of now like in the Charlotte mode where it's like she's just so good you could just slot her in there anytime. But she's had a really good run right now. She was like one of the big bright spots throughout the whole pandemic, no fans, how they sort of let her be her again, really going crazy and just like cutting promos in Japanese, and people are like looking at her like, what the hell is she talking about? Like she was great on the commentary table, and she would kind of come and just like dance around and
sure.
So I think she's had a good run. I don't think she's going to be completely just shoved back down the card again. This is the time for Alexa. It's like the spooky character should scare her. Think about The Undertaker, man. He used to scare the most badass people because it's the stuff like how many badasses gave The Undertaker a scared look throughout their years.
Right. No, you're spot on. And it gives them an out. We often wondered, would we ever find out who Abigail was? I'm not saying this is the final story of that, but it kind of fits the mold what she is, right?
It does.
And it gives you an out down the road with her with the belt, to her to lose the belt, and this character goes away, because she can't stay this character forever, right? Bray Wyatt can, because that's him, but she can't. But right now, this is so good, and her to do the upside down spider, and then the theatrics there at the end.
Phenomenal.
That was amazing, man. It's perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Throughout the whole episode, this is another one where I think they're figuring this out again. It's funny, just looking at Raw and SmackDown and seeing feeling some of the effort they put into their show this last week, whether you liked it or not, like whether you like the angles, it felt like they're at least putting effort into it. And then when we get to NXT, or when we get to AEW in a little bit, I really felt the opposite of their show that we just watched. I thought this was one of the worst AEW shows that I can remember. But over on Raw, we have again a situation where you've got this Alexa stuff all throughout the episode, which really keeps you engaged. And the stuff with the playground, Alexa's playground with Asuka, where Asuka's sort of getting creeped out, and then even in the match later, where Alexa's going from like Alexa to Fiend version Alexa. She's going to the dark character. She's no selling. And And the way, like, she's such a good actress, one, like with her facials, with the expressions that she gives, and two, I think people forget Alexa's really good in the ring, and you could see how good she was just by, like, how clean she was no-selling things or how she would just pop right back up. She hit that Sister Abigail, and that thing looked damn good.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, that segment and that match was so entertaining. And what has happened, with Randy Orton at the beginning, then we have, Alexa's Playground in the middle. It kind of, unfortunately, overshadows one of the best matches I've seen in forever with AJ Styles and Ricochet. That shows you how good things are right now. Yeah, the ratings may not be fantastic, and the demos this, the demos that, but we're getting some good stuff right now from the E. We're getting some really good stuff from them.
I think this is what has to happen, too, is that it takes about a month where people start going, oh, you know what? And then the word of mouth catches on, and the buzz catches back on, and then people tune back in again, and it generally happens around this time, like right after football season, like every year, it's when it starts to pick back up on the road to WrestleMania, and people go, oh, like, have you seen the Roman stuff on SmackDown? That's really good. And, oh, wow, like Daniel Bryan's doing a lot of stuff over there now. Like Shinsuke looks like Shinsuke. Cesaro had an awesome match. Like, and then people go, oh, you know what? Like, they're pushing Bianca over there. Oh, like, wow, there's like 4 or 5 things going on. And then you flip over to Raw. The Randy stuff's interesting. The Alexa stuff's interesting. Now we're getting, you mentioned, it feels like, and I don't want to get too crazy, but when they do something like this with Ricochet to where it's, hey, Ricochet, you're going to have to win to get in the Rumble, and now that feels like a storyline, yes. I'd imagine he's going to be in the Rumble, and he's going to at least eliminate someone to set up some sort of feud. I feel like, I don't think he's going to win and be in the main event of WrestleMania, but I think he's going to have a moment in the Rumble. It feels like you don't have a like this where he loses his hard-fought match and now he's just not in the Rumble, right? He's going to end up in there some way, somehow.
Yeah, and just, like Shinsuke coming over and showing this talent, and AJ Styles, one of the best that's ever stepped into a ring, especially for his size. Man, I popped. I'm not going to lie. I marked out the Styles Clash at the end. It was amazing for AJ to pull off, but you got to think, how did Ricochet do that from the ropes? And just week in and week out, this guy has been getting beat down all the time from either the Hurt Business, AJ Styles. Somebody's always beating this guy up. And like you said, they usually build this guy, build a character up. He or she loses, then all of a sudden makes this run. And I think he's going to have a massive run in the Royal Rumble match. I'm with you. I don't think he wins, but I think he does some incredible things, like we've seen Morrison, like we've seen Kofi. I think Ricochet is that guy this year for this match.
He could instantly be back if you put him in at number 1 and he's got the Iron Man run to the Final Four.
An hour. Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You put him in, because you're just going through and watching some of the old Rumbles, they're always the best when you've got that Iron Man or Iron Woman in there. Someone who you put in at the beginning and they're in there for 45 minutes to an hour, and the whole match you keep going, oh yeah, they're still in there. Look, oh, they're going to do something crazy. He would be the most perfect guy to just let him shine out there and interact with everyone that comes out. Oh, look, it's Ricochet and Randy Orton. Oh, look, it's AJ. Oh, look, and just let him show off. I mean, he would instantly feel like a big deal if you let him do that, and that would be perfect. I would love to see Ricochet get a chance to get that long run. Where do we stand with Ric Flair and Lacey Evans as they arrive together? She's quote unquote learning from him. She wears the Ric Flair robe. They even mention like some sort of TMZ. So they try to distract Charlotte in the match with Peyton Royce. Charlotte still ends up winning this, and then she cuts the promo later on, and she says, I don't really care, and take the robe, but I'm still the queen. What do you think of all this stuff with Lacey?
We thought it was going to be a one-off, right? And, of course we were wrong. But you know, if anybody can pull it off, it's Rick and Charlotte.
It's true.
You know, it is. I thought maybe Peyton should have got the cheap win this week. You know, I kind of felt that Charlotte doesn't need to win every week to be great. No. So it would kind of fueled that storyline a little bit more. I'm sure we're going to get a Charlotte Lacey Evans type match here pretty soon. But like you said, Charlotte mentions, hey, I've got to go back to being the dirtiest player in the game to learn my way to start doing this. So it's okay. I like Lacey Evans. I'm a huge Lacey Evans fan, but it kind of feels we've seen this before.
Yeah, I'm still jury's out. I guess we'll see where it goes in the next few weeks. For a while, we've had Lashley getting involved with the Hurt Business. Lashley getting involved with Riddle. Lashley stomps on Riddle's foot here, and they have a match later on. But it still looks like we're not quite finished with the Riddle Lashley stuff. I sort of just want one. Give me one 15-minute match with these two guys, right? We've been kind of teasing and like dancing around it for a while, but I feel like if these two guys go out there for 15, 20, they'd really be able to tear the house down.
Yeah, again, a huge Matt Riddle fan, always have great indie work, fantastic in NXT. And kind of like he's kind of been the kind of goofy, comical character, which that kind of is his persona, you know, hey, bro. But let's not focus too much on that because the dude can really work. We've seen him and AJ Styles on the main roster go at it, and those matches were good. Him and Lashley would be great. You know, we've been talking about and been seeing this tease between Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. We've kind of saw it Monday night. They
maybe
were
something in the Rumble.
Yeah, Lashley tags himself in and kind of takes care of business. So yeah, let's do Lashley and Riddle and let the Hurt Business kind of turn on each other and kind of meander off after the Royal Rumble because I am kind of burnt out on that storyline a little. It was fun. I like MVP, big fan of him, but it's kind of old hat now.
I agree. I really liked Mustafa Ali's promo about
Kofi. It was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was great. It was very real. He talked about how he stole his spot in 2019. Yes. Remember, Mustafa was the one that was supposed to win that gauntlet match and then go on and be the number one contender and get a big spot at WrestleMania. And it ended up going to Kofi. He wins. He goes on. And I thought, you know, this was good. And if they're going to sort of rebuild Mustafa with this too, maybe we can just kind of put the retribution stuff from the last couple months in the back of our head, but see him as a bigger deal with some lackeys there to help him out. I like this. I thought it was really good.
It was real personal. And when you didn't see the rest of Retribution in the video, that kind of helped me kind of communicate and connect with him and made it more personal. Like he was saying, you know, like, as you mentioned, I mean, dude, this was me. I was supposed to win that title. You know, this was supposed to be my run. I took you out. So that was perfect. That was great. He deserves another run because he's an absolute star in the ring, and that promo definitely helped kickstart this. And that's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that momentum going with him because that was a big promo from him.
That was some big stuff there, and this guy's capable. He showed us he's dropped some really good promos on Twitter. He's really capable of taking the mic and running with it when he gets an opportunity. He's got a lot of stuff to get off his chest. So we got a couple of pre-recorded videos regarding the main event with Goldberg and with Drew McIntyre. First, we got Jeff Jarrett, spend my days working hard on the go, JARRJEJEFFJ. But Jarrett, who says he thinks Goldberg's going to win, and then we saw the Drew McIntyre with his pre-recorded video from his home studio. So I'd imagine now, like, they had already announced that Drew McIntyre is going to be back next week. He looked fine, and he said he's feeling better. Like, I don't think they would be planning it out unless he's already tested negative or
sure.
Like, yeah. I'd imagine he's already tested negative for COVID because I don't think they would even chance saying he's going to be in the ring with Goldberg and they haven't tested him or they don't even know. So I'd imagine things are probably on the up and up for Drew Mac, the WWE champ.
Yeah, and, you know, that's one thing you've got to give a lot of credit for WWE. They haven't hid their workers testing positive. Yeah. And it is what it is. It's the normalcy. It's what you got to get used to. And yeah, he's probably it was probably cleared to go this week. So it allows you for him to sit back home for another week, and it allows the dirt sheet again just more fantastic work between
with Gilbert,
Johnny and Ms. Gilbert, and a phony Drew McIntyre. Was just amazing. So fun.
That was, I'm pretty sure that was the dude that was Bernard from the Santa Claus, the elf. He's also the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You, the real dorky guy. He's also in Harold and Kumar.
Yeah.
They go to White Castle, the friend, and he just is a lot bigger than you've ever seen. He's got that line in Harold and Guantanamo Bay. And he's like, why is your butt so dirty? Like, don't you wipe? But he comes out. I'm like, oh, I know this guy. It's this guy.
And the Miz is so mad. He goes, to Morrison, where did you get these people from? That line just made the whole segment, man.
The Morrison Miz stuff is pretty funny. Like when he gets mad at him, or like when he Morrison's like agreeing with Drew stuff. He's like, oh, you don't agree with this. The Miz is always gonna make me crack up, and right now he's not gonna be in the main event ever for a long period. But whoever has the briefcase, it's better having it. Because it's still a vehicle to use where you can quickly change things up. I'd much rather have somebody win the title and then lose it real quick than just completely lose the briefcase, because the briefcase the last 4 or 5 years has felt like it's not as important as it used to be.
Right, and it feels important again. We all kind of laughed and thought it was great that Otis won it, right? But we knew that Otis was not going to be a world champion. At least we didn't think was. Maybe for a night he would have been and lost it, the next week. But, giving it back to the Miz and cutting these type promos and knowing that Miz is a former world champion, it leaves the door open that, okay, he could cash this thing in and actually win. So, it gives it more importancy, and it's relevant again. And the way they just continue to do these segments every week, just it puts the briefcase in a spotlight with their comedy and makes it even more relevant.
Couple other quick hits on Raw. We've still got the Shayna, Nia, Mandy, Dana stuff. This is sort of a tag feud for these women as they progress to the Royal Rumble. I'd imagine we'll get some sort of interaction with them in the Rumble. And then the one thing that made me laugh, we had the Jeff Hardy, Jackson Riker, and Elias, and Elias, Riker keeps telling Elias not to interfere in his match, and as he interferes, Hardy's going up for the Swanton Bomb, and then Riker gets all pissed. The line, I don't know why, I must have rewound it and laughed 4 times at Elias saying, dude, the guy's about to hit you with the Swanton Bomb. Nobody kicks out of that. Just the way he said it, I just was dying. It's a Swanton, man. Nobody kicks out of that. I feel a little bad for Jeff, but I like all these guys. Yeah. It's entertaining. I just I kept thinking we were going to get one more last Jeff Hardy run, but it seems like he's another one where they get a little behind and then they go, you know what? We don't really need to get behind Jeff. We can just kind of throw him out there and he'll get a pop no matter what.
Yeah, and do his fancy moves and some crazy dives and stuff. I'm a huge Elias fan. I've seen, I was fortunate enough to see this guy, perform live at house shows with his guitar, and it's I think the universe likes him and Jackson Riker now. I love it. They're going back and forth, but he goes, oh, I thought you said you did want me to interfere in your match.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic stuff, man. It's fantastic.
It really is. So we head on over to Wednesday. Let's talk about AEW and what we just saw on Dynamite. Some things that I really like. All the stuff that they're doing with -1, it's cool. It's a lot of fun for us fans that know the story and everything. Brody Lee's son, they're giving him it was his birthday, so they're celebrating his birthday. They give him a chance to come in here. He's using the kendo stick. This was great. The only gripe, and I don't even want to have a gripe for a segment like this, is I'm not sure if this is the best segment to open a show with.
Right. Yes.
Just because if we're fans, we tune in and we know, oh, really cool. Like they're doing it with -1. But if somebody didn't really know what was happening and they were just flipping through the channels, they would probably say, what is this? And they probably wouldn't understand. It would take a while for them to figure it out. And I like it though. I'm glad they keep getting him interacted. And it's pretty amazing what's happened with the Dark Order, who went from this group at the beginning that everybody said this is the worst thing AEW doing. Everybody hates them. Get them off my TV. Like, we're talking about go away heat, not even heel heat. And now you've got John Silver, who is one of the biggest stars in the company. Yeah. Everybody loves this guy. And the post-match celebration, or when they're talking with Adam Page and they're asking Page if he's going to join, he says, are you going to join the group? And he says, I can't. And then he said yes. And they've got everything. They got the Cowboys coming out. They've got everything already planned, and they have to. Oh, he didn't say yes. He says he doesn't want to do the group thing again. That made me crack up. I enjoyed that. I laughed. And hey, you know what? This team is now the Dark Order. They're a babyface team. The crowd is going to get behind them, and they're going to be booked that way.
Yeah, and I thought, I was right. I was on board with you. I thought this was a silly gimmick. I didn't like the name of the team. I didn't like what they stood for. And then they took them off, in-ring competition, and then they kind of back them off TV, and then they start doing these really good promos, right? With the TV and these kind of infomercials, join the Dark Order today. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then when Brody Lee comes over and joins them and they kind of rally behind him, then you get behind them and you can take them serious. Oh, at the same time, they're funny. But yeah, that segment was really entertaining, but I'm with you. It probably, I don't even mind that ending the show, but don't put it on at the very beginning. Because like you said, if you get a first-time watcher or a guy that hasn't been, or a lady hasn't been watching wrestling for a long time, and they were watching TNT
and something, like, the end of whatever show turns into this, they're going, oh, this is, and again, I like it. I think there's a place for it, especially with what's been happening lately. But it sort of felt like this was a show where they said, oh, hey, we're up against the inauguration. We're going to just mail it in, which is what we get mad at WWE for doing a lot of times through the football season. We feel like there are a lot of Mondays where they kind of go, oh, you know what? Like, it's Chiefs Packers on Monday Night Football. Like, we're just going to mail it in. It's going to be a big game. The things I did like, and I are always one of the highlights of my show when I'm watching AEW, MJF. He's worried. He's worried all throughout about the Inner Circle tag match, and he's playing mind games with these guys all night with Jericho, and then he goes back in with Sammy and Santana and Ortiz and Hager, and he said, we don't have to do this. We shouldn't have to do this. But, and then, of course, at the end of the night, who's the one that wins, that has the roll up with the tights, and he's got that cheap smirk on his face. Yeah. This guy is phenomenal, and it looks like I think we'll probably get a run with him and Jericho as the tag team champs, or at least going for the tag team titles.
Yeah, and I think they need to win it too. I really do. I like Private Party, what they're doing. I enjoy FTR, with the real tag team wrestling wrestlers. But man, this feels like these two guys need it, and just go back and forth with these two guys with the gold. It was a good main event, and with that little cheesy grin, as you mentioned, it's just icing on the cake. MJF we didn't know it then when they announced him as one of their signees, but he is, you talk about the gets of all get, that guy's good, and he's perfect in AEW.
And we get Sting out to congratulate Darby, but even this, it's like, I was listening. I can't remember another show or who said it. I think it might have been Wade Keller. Or someone had said that the weird thing with Sting is that he's got all this charisma and all this gravitas before he talks, and even really before he gets in the ring. It's like this mystic aura. But the more he talks, he was never a fantastic promo.
No.
And the more he wrestles, he was always fine in the ring, but never necessarily the most fantastic. So it's funny, like, he's one of those guys that really feels like an old school territory guy. Like, the more we see him on our TV, I don't know why, I got the feeling this week, it was just like the way he kind of quickly walked out and grabbed the mic and was just talking regularly, and he didn't have much to say again. It was just, hey, I want to congratulate you for winning the title. I like seeing Sting here, but I don't know if it's just me or not, but I feel like if we were getting this same thing in WWE, a lot of people would be crapping on it, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
We're just not getting much. When we get, so Team Taz goes back and forth with Sting and Darby, and they talk about how, they're from the streets, and there's going to be, they're teasing a street fight coming up with one group against another group, and so we'll probably see that. But, I don't know. I've been a little underwhelmed with the Sting stuff so far.
Yeah, and we mentioned, over the last 2 times that we've talked, it's time for Sting to have a match in AEW. Now, I don't know if they're waiting. I believe the next pay-per-view is the end of February, and that's a long time to wait. I know they have like some beach gimmick or something, some kind of Wednesday night. Yeah, here in a couple of weeks. That might be the perfect opportunity. But, when you go back to WCW, remember Sting with the blonde hair and the face paint? When he talked, he didn't talk very long. And the best thing we got was, his ow at the end of the, his screams at the end of the promo. So it just feels forced, and it just doesn't feel like Sting. It's like, okay, we have Sting. We're going to put you out there, and you're going to like everything that we make him do. And it doesn't, because it does not feel like Sting.
Yeah, I agree. I want a little more here just to get a little. Every time he leaves, I feel it's like a little anticlimactic. It's like, oh, cool, I saw Sting, but I almost feel like it's the same thing that people get pissed off at when they see the legends on WWE.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
I'm just seeing a legend. I mean, I don't know, like, it's cool to see him, but when you see them every single week and they haven't done anything now for 4 or 5 weeks in a row, you start wanting something to happen. I gotta say though, MJF I like, and I love the stuff with Don Callis and with Omega.
Oh, sure.
Callis. Yeah. He is playing this invisible hand guy. So we get the Young Bucks going to Kenny Omega's house, and he's not there, but Don Callis is there. First, Michael Nakazawa, and so Don Callis, he's trying to pay them off to not be his friends. He's telling them, wait, what phone number do you have? Because Kenny's got a new number. And then the painting that is like
the painting over the top.
Vince. The people talk about how Vince has got a painting like that of himself.
Sure.
That's like, his shirt off, and he looks like this was phenomenal. It's Kenny Omega and Don Callis together with their shirts off, with these like 12-pack body ab like painted on, and they're wearing these jeans. It's just, oh my God, I was laughing at that painting so much.
Yeah, and he calls the Young Bucks have been kind of, hanging honors or whatever he calls them, and then what, they attack him, or we're
led to believe they attack him.
Led to believe they're going to attack him at the end. And it's funny how Callis can be better on AEW than he is, on Impact. And I like Callis on commentary. I've always sang his praises, but it seems like it's much better with AEW. And I'm not, AEW's got a more talented roster, but still Impact's got a lot of talent too. But that was a great segment, and it kind of felt like the old YouTube segments we used to get from the Young Bucks and
the Elite stuff.
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
Of that. Yeah.
That's what it felt like. What it felt like.
We got a quick Cody beating Peter Avalon here. Not a whole lot. I called a lot of Peter Avalon matches, though.
I love Peter Avalon.
Me too. He does a great job. He's got like a really good, like, he's just a good hand to have. He can do whatever you need for him on the roster. We got the FTR with Tully backstage. Man, for a moment, I got this like crazy deja vu when Jungle Boy walked in. He looked so much like his dad from the angle where he was standing with the sideburn right there. I was like, oh my God, that is Dylan Luke Perry.
Dylan McKay.
Oh man, like I just got this, like, I had to stop it and like show my girl, like, look how much from this angle. Like, you always get it a little bit, and for some reason in this particular scene, he looked like really was screaming Dylan. And it just shows you, it's one of those things where it's like, these guys are all good. They're like, I think there's a lot of talent that we don't see very much. We only see on Dark. And like, this was a weird week as far as who we saw on TV, who we didn't. I like Jungle Boy. I like Jurassic Express, but that's one of my gripes with AEW is that if people aren't watching Dark, it feels like sometimes there's a month before we see some like pretty talented acts like that. So that's what's hard with the new company when you have a ton of talent like this. It's like trying to, okay, it's your turn now. No, okay, now you're out for a few weeks. Now you get some TV time. Now you're out for a few weeks. And I think it's a team like the Jurassic Express and even FTR we haven't seen a whole lot. And it's the women. I mean, we that suffer. We don't see a whole lot from the women. We keep talking about it, and when we do, it's not incredible. There's a few. I love Britt and what she does, and I love her gimmick. Her character is great, but looks like we're leading to a women's world title eliminator tournament. They only briefly mentioned it, but from what I can see, Chad, it looks like it's going to be. It looked like the bracket had 16 spots. There were 8 on the U.S. side, and there were 8 from Japan. So maybe they do some sort of thing where they have a couple taped matches from the women in Japan, and then whoever wins that comes out here and faces the winner of the U.S. side, and that gives them a number 1 contender.
I just hope they don't stick it on Dark, right? You know, I really don't watch AEW Dark.
Me neither.
I really haven't. There's no
thrown
reason.
It in the background the very first few weeks here and
Me
there.
too. I tried.
Since then, I just said, okay, this is kind of like a main event WWE sort of thing,
Sure.
where it's like it's for people that are watching their TV, it's hard to assume that everyone's watching Dark or BTE, you know, and sometimes I think they get a little too, oh yeah, we've got our group of 500,000 people that are going to watch everything we do, but they forget that if someone's just flipping through, or like even guys like you and I watch a lot of wrestling. If I missed something on BTE and then I tune on AEW and I can't really catch, or I'm not following along, that's sometimes a disconnect.
You know, I looked up, preparing for the show, doing some research and some notes. I looked up AEW Dark, and I think each week they do 14 matches, and I think they tape that like the day before a Dynamite taping, and I think they tape it day after. And as of, Wednesday night, a day that has been on YouTube, it was like 14,000 views, and that's not very good. That's not in for their audience and for their claim to be the number 1 wrestling show. And as Tony Khan says it every week on his Impact paid commercials that he's on, they're the number 1 wrestling show on television. That's not and for instance, Peter Avalon, he's on AEW Dark every week. I love to see Peter Avalon on Dynamite, and then he's on, and then we won't see him for another 2 or 3 months. They have all this female talent. I just hope they don't take this women's tournament and bury it on AEW Dark, which they're probably going to put a lot of matches on. You got 1 women's match on Dynamite this week, and Penelope Ford and Layla Hirsch. No offense, but that shouldn't be it.
No, and the match at the end, there was a bad botch with Kip with the finish. I'm not sure what he was trying to do. The announcers didn't even know what he was trying to do. That's what I got to say. Like, this entire show from top to bottom, there was some sloppy wrestling. In the main event, Jericho had a scary spot with the Lion's Vault, which was bad. Sammy, even who's really clean, had sort of a bad, not smooth spot. We had some ref stuff here and there. The commentary was a little bit off. So it was just like a weird, like not a great night production-wise, all like top to bottom. We got Moxley for a sort of like elongated squash win, and they seem pretty high on who he was on the guy he was wrestling, though, someone who's got a little ability too.
Yeah, Nick Camarado. He's been on AEW Dark for a while, and it seems like there's another one that stays on AEW Dark, and I've seen him here regionally in Texas, Danny Limelight, who's from California, who does a lot of California stuff when they were running shows. It seems like those guys have been kind of on AEW Dark, and they get ready to bring them up, kind of like an NXT type deal to the main roster. But it seems like they're really high on Nick, and I think they may be really high on Danny Limelight because he's getting more matches. He wasn't on last night, but he's getting more matches on Wednesday night. But, yeah, it just felt clunky. From top to finish. We've got some big news that they announced. There's looks like a pretty decent show for next week.
Yeah.
But I don't like the Shaquille O'Neal deal. I can't.
Okay, and the Miro.
It feels like the
Miro
Butler stuff. Come on, man.
The Miro stuff is just okay. I'm fine with the whole, like, someone is going to be like my servant, butler, whatever for a month.
Sure.
But when you're making him come out, okay, like, this is another thing, and I keep bringing it back to, if this was something that was done in WWE, I would roll my eyes, and a lot of people would be pissed off at it and say, this is crap. Like, Orange Cassidy is sitting right there.
Sure.
He knows everything that's going on. Why would he be upset that his friend came out and said, "You're not my best friend anymore, Chad Cooper. I have to tell them that Miro is now my best friend." Like, why would he be mad at that and walk away? That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, let's just chalk it as a bad night for AEW because it really wasn't a good show. Like you said, we got Moxley in a match. Anytime you see Moxley on TV is good. I think Eddie Kingston and Archer has potential to be pretty good next week. Yep. Eddie Kingston, the king of all promos. You're going to get the Young Bucks. The Good Brothers are back on in a match again. We keep seeing this Impact relationship. I know Impact earlier this week had Private Party over there with Matt Hardy, and they become number one contenders over there by beating, James Storm and one of the guys from Motor City Machine Gun. So I don't know. It just feels like a lot of storylines and not enough hours in the day for AEW right now.
Yep, I agree. Just not a great week, so we'll give them a benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
They're still new, but I didn't love a whole lot of what we had coming out of AEW. But I will say that's the one thing about NXT is that it's steady. It's really steady. There are not very many NXT shows that you watch and you go, that was a really bad show. The highs might not be as high as far as like storyline stuff that they get behind, but the work is always really good. I love the stuff going on with Johnny. Finn stuff's good. Cross stuff's good. Like, there's a lot of things you could pick out in NXT and find good and not bad. And you were telling me about some really big signings that NXT just made.
Yeah, there's been rumor. There's always those big internet rumors, and we always talk about, every time we talk and we talk pro wrestling, we always mention NXT's women's roster. You're not going to get any better from top to bottom. Those ladies, they main event a lot of the shows. They main event a lot of the NXT takeovers, and they deserve it. And they just got three pretty big names. Priscilla Kelly, which has been around who was, married to Darby for a while. I think they're divorced now. She was a huge name in the indie scene. She is now signed with NXT. Elena Black, who we've seen multiple times through the indies. I think we've seen her on a Dark a couple of times. They're putting them together in the women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic as a tag team. And also Lacey Ryan, who has been a hot name over the last 6 or 8 months in the indie circuit. She's been down to Texas multiple times. She is signed too. So 3 massive signings. And on NXT, Beth Phoenix was on the stage announcing all, first ever Dusty Rhodes Women's Tag Team Classic, and all of the women's talent that's in that tournament was on that stage, including those 3 new girls. They're just doing everything right in that women's division, from Toni Storm, Mercedes Martinez. It's just really, really, really good. And I thought the main event was solid. Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa in the fight pit. That was amazing. That was amazing.
It's just good. It's really, really solid. There are no downers whatsoever when we talk about NXT, and Wednesday nights are a lot of fun. And hey, it feels like WWE is now peaking back up again because
they are.
When our conversation here, we had a lot of positive things to say about Raw and SmackDown, and not nearly as much this week about AEW. So maybe on the road to WrestleMania, we are getting there again. Chad Cooper, every time I tell you it's going to be like 30, 40 minutes, we go soaring past that because you and I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours about wrestling all day long. I love you, buddy, and I thank you. And we'll next week, we're going to be talking some Rumble. We're going to be previewing the Royal Rumble, so a lot to discuss. Give the folks out there your plugs. Where can we follow you along on social media, and where can we find some of your work?
Yeah, at the Chad Cooper on both Twitter and Instagram. And also, those who don't know, Title Match Network, Title Match Wrestling, look them up. Over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. They do a lot of indie shows, live internet pay-per-view.
Great stuff.
And a big one this Saturday night in Beaumont, Texas with Hurricane Pro Wrestling. Heather Monroe's going to be there. The Mad Dog, Matt Cross, who everyone knows from Lucha Underground, Son of Havoc. I think he's working one-on-one with Miranda Alizé. And I've been told they got a big super show February 27th. Deanna Perrazzo's going to be there. A lot of talent. So Title Match Network, check them out. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at the Chad Cooper. And let's talk wrestling, football, photography, music, you name it.
We'll definitely retweet that and put that out there for all the wrestling fans too. So Chad, buddy, thank you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Gino.
That's Cooper Loop, Chad Cooper helping us out, talking this week in wrestling. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back.
Coop Loop, always the man. We'll be talking to Coop often, every week to couple weeks here. And with the Royal Rumble coming up, we're definitely going to be talking to him over the next few weeks. We'll have tons of Royal Rumble content next week on That's What G Said. And so that was also one of the reasons why we're not talking about the Tiger documentary this time. And I'm even going to save another segment for Cobra Kai for next week. Since there's not going to be any football, we'll have a little more room to talk, and we're going to start to kind of figure out what our new schedule will really be like without the football content. There'll be more TV show recaps. We'll have more horse racing. We'll be covering Sam Houston every day, and then the big races from whatever big track has the weekend focus. There are going to be a lot of Kentucky Derby prep races to discuss. We're going to talk a lot about the NBA. Baseball news will start to be on the horizon, and we're going to get into conference tournaments for college basketball and March Madness. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully there won't have to be too many cancellations there. So it'll be less NFL without the weekly recaps and previews. But there's the world of sports and pop culture just continues to go on. So we'll have different things to talk about here, just not as much on the NFL side of things. That'll do it for this episode, folks. Make sure if you can, download, rate, subscribe, review, share the show around with all of your friends. Let them know about That's What G Said podcast, how there's no other show like us, right? No other show that goes through all of the major events in sports, covers a ton of different horse races, wrestling, TV shows, movies, try to do everything that we can for you and give you all the best information, lead you to some winners, lead you to great info, lead you to having some fun with a show or a movie. Big thanks to Joey Cleveland, my friend who does the intro, and he's doing all sorts of little segment intros that you're going to notice. And over the next few weeks, we're going to continue to improve the show with a little more sound, some extra segments. Going to continue to get you guys involved out there, guys and gals. We want to hear from all of you with the That's What You Said segments, where I'm going to start to ask for some of your weekly plays and hear your voices here a little bit more on That's What G Said. Have an awesome weekend, folks. Best of luck.